Hello, everyone. We're back after way too much work.
Yes.
Way too much work. I left up a brief video saying why we were going on hiatus for a month. But for those of you who missed it, I was training for my black belt exam, which included writing a thesis. So it wasn't all just physical work and technique memorization. I actually had to. It was a scholarly endeavor as well. And you had to do like the equivalent of like 10 college courses, it feels like.
It felt like it. Oh
Good
my
grief.
gosh. Yeah, it's in our state, it's an equivalent of a master's, but that's not saying much because it's our state. But no, yeah, I was working on my national boards, and I'm still working on studying for the test.
But you're all done with like the heavy data.
Yes, the heavy, busy work is behind me, thankfully. Yeah. So we're ready to get back to doing fun stuff again.
There's a little bit more about. We're gonna go more into what's been going on with us over the last month in the when we have our guest star come on with us later. So for right now, we're just gonna go ahead and jump into the reviews that you guys left while we were gone and away. I think we've only got like 2 of them this time, but let's go ahead and address those.
All right, Joe Clone.
He's the one that we're having on later.
Very cool chapter. Moda Chica is fun, and Montanari is really interesting. I also liked the accents you gave them in the audio version.
I feel like I shot myself in the foot because I'm like, I can do either accent fairly convincing. Like Australian, I know I can do that one.
Yeah.
Like that one I know I've got. British, I feel like I can do somewhat convincingly. Like I'm not saying I'm professional by any stretch of the word, but I feel like it's passable. But they're not the same accent, but there are similarities. So I'm like, whenever I'm switching back and forth between the two of them in a conversation, I'm just like, this was a mistake. I made a mistake. Errors were made.
Nice.
But I committed to it, so I got to keep going with it now.
It started off pretty serious with the dismissal of Tsunehisa. Excuse me.
It's okay.
I guess that it came to a head sooner than I thought it would. Sorry, I keep hiccuping, and I'm going to let you keep going.
Okay. I guess that came to a head sooner than I thought it would. If we see him again, I hope he would have gained some sense. Honestly, that's kind of the feeling I was going for. Like, I wanted it to feel like it was going to be a thing that was going to take a while to resolve, but something to remember is that Keihatsu is young. He is wise beyond his years, but he is young. So there are certain things about him and his personality that can simply be attributed to his age.
Yeah.
And kind of being almost in a rush to get to the quick of things is one of those character traits that he has. Whether or not that can be considered a flaw as of yet, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see how it affects him and the story going forward. Let's see. The political stuff at the party was ballsy, pun intended. I do not consider myself a reader of fictitious political intrigue, but you definitely pulled me in. Awesome. And with Keihatsu's stunt toward the heckler and naysayers, I get a sense that Keihatsu for the first time really shows his claim to the throne of Aurora. Definitely something needed for a climate like that. Also more fuel shipping to the Keihachi. I love them together right now. That's funny. That's funny. It's how do I put this? Like, he's always had the capacity to do what he did. The problem was that he needed more political clout to get away with it.
Yeah.
And now that he's got a solid portion of the army backing him, like they're not just following him because he's the warlord. They're following him because he went and he put his neck out on the line along with them.
Yeah.
Because that does a lot for soldiers. Now he's got a more solid military backing. So if people start giving him trouble, he has. It's not said in the narrative, but if you're paying attention, it's like he now has the martial and political clout to get away with stuff like this.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So, alrighty. Next one is Silikira. You want to take this one or me?
All right, let me... You yawned.
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Silikira. Careful, Keihatsu, your teenager is showing. serious talk for a moment here. This protagonist has already done some pretty incredible things, but they can also be interpreted as brash and headstrong. He has led his armed forces to victory, successfully evaded, and in some cases now outright overpowered political adversaries. All of these things are impressive to be done, especially by a 16-year-old. At the same time, they certainly could have been handled with more tact. Yup. Now, before you shoot the messenger, hear me out and why this is actually a good thing for the story, even if maybe not for the character. Obviously, it's easy enough for me to sit behind my computer screen and offer criticisms for a fictional character when I have, at best, limited knowledge of this person and his story that now informs his actions.
His history.
His history. It's very easy for a person to sit back without any risk of their being and
To their being.
Okay, you read it then.
Any risk to their being and point out all the things that could have been done better by character A, B, C, or D, etc. We're able to view everything from a distance, while he is, for lack of a better term, trapped in his own worldview/narrative. The fact that Keihatsu's actions are arguably the correct ones, motivated by some suspect motivations, is what, more than anything else, helps keep me grounded with the understanding that this is a teenager who's been forced into his crown almost too early. It makes him feel like a real person instead of the icon figurehead that some of his advisors clearly want him to be.
Nice.
Okay. I like the way that they put that. It's like it's a good thing for the story, but it may not be such a good thing for the character.
Yeah. No. That's what you want.
I like that. Let's see. Let's see. Now for the progression of the story itself. The dismissal of Tsunehisa was surprising to me. Yes, good. Not in the sense that it happened, but it happened so quickly in the story. On top of that, Keihatsu is essentially moving to replace him with the person the advisor tried to have ousted. Even if she is popular with Takanobu's faction now, it definitely feels like there's going to be repercussions for that one at some point later on. Probably. Not how I thought we were going to be meeting the other warlords, honestly. I haven't played the game, but from my understanding, the game progresses by you forcibly conquering all 17 kingdoms, right? Or is there a function that allows you to form alliances with nations you haven't battled? Maybe I missed something, and honestly, it's really on me for thinking the only way Aurora/Keihatsu would get any allies would be through force, like in the game. You did say that this was angling to be more of a political drama. Maybe I forgot that in the excitement of the battle from the last chapter? That's my bad. To answer your question, no, there is not a way to ally yourself with other kingdoms in the game without battling them to defeat. There are so when you're doing a battle, there are certain requisites that have to be met before you're allowed to recruit certain warriors. So like with when you're recruiting a standard warrior, it's like the rules are kind of simple. Like as long as you defeat them within like 4 turns or something like that, you can recruit them. Or if you defeat them without taking any damage, so on and so forth. But for the other warlords, there are extra rules that you have to follow in order to acquire them because they are more powerful. They tend to come with better abilities and more unique Pokemon. So it is more. So it makes sense that they would be more difficult to attain. But there is not any like peaceable way to acquire another kingdom.
Gotcha.
So, excuse me. The back of my throat's itching. My potential misunderstandings aside, I do like both of these warlords as well as the way that you handled their introductions. They were kinder to Keihatsu than I expected them to be, which I suppose is a mark of how much they respected his father, giving his heir a fair chance despite the fact that he's something of an outlier when it comes to taking the throne on their continent. It is a mark of respect to his father, but something else to understand is this may be my fault for not making it more obvious in the narrative, but this is not, strictly speaking, this is not the first time that they have interacted. This is his first time interacting with them beyond hello, my name is, because for important state matters and stuff, he would have been at the table, for the dinner or whatever, but that doesn't mean that he would be invited to speak.
Yeah.
So he's seen these men from a distance. He would watch them while they interacted with his father, but now he's stepped into the role of his father. So that's why that's one of the reasons why they are especially formal in their greetings to one another, because even if this isn't the first time of them seeing each other face to face, this is the first time that they are meeting as the heads of their respective states.
Got it.
So there's a lot of from my understanding, there's a lot of protocol that goes into that kind of thing. Even if let's say an earl or or a duchy or whatever. Like, let's.
Touchy.
I've heard. Sorry, something in my throat.
Maybe pause.
No, I'm all right. Sorry, I lost.
We should probably pause.
No, sorry. I was looking for another word. I know that one is that is a word. I've heard it used.
I've never heard it that way. I've heard Duke and Duchess.
Duke and Duchess, but there is the word duchy does exist. It's just it's not usually used in American English.
Okay.
Benefits / detriments of growing up in a Commonwealth country. Anyways, people of certain statuses, even if they like grew up knowing each other, when they are first stepping into their role, when they first meet each other, quote unquote, again for the first time, they have to go through the whole rigmarole. Not even really for their benefit or for the benefit of like holding airs and graces. It's more of an announcement to the court as an official recognition of this is who I am. This is why I come here.
Got it.
So that's where I draw that from. Let's see. Motonari and Motochika have similar names, but for me that's about where the similarities end. You've done a good job at portraying three rather different men all conducting themselves in regards to the same job, sort of. We have Keihatsu, the child / servant king. Motochika, who is clearly meant to be the warrior king. Honestly, I was almost expecting him to be a Saiyan-like ruler, but he seems a little too tame for that. That's an interesting way to put it. I kind of like that. You're right. He's a little. I mean, I don't know. Vegeta chilled out. It took him a few decades, but he finally chilled out. But I think I understand what they're saying. Yeah, he's like. I don't know. We'll let you read this next chapter, and we'll see if that still holds. Let's see. And then Motonari, whom I'll say is the tactician king. Honestly, of the two, the Greenleaf Warlord fascinates me more due to the fact that he essentially decided that he was going to wander around in a territory rife with Pokemon that would have snuffed his partner and him by proxy without a second thought. But not only did he survive on a continuous basis, he went on to become the most powerful Grass-type warrior on Ransei. This guy has a story, and I'm assuming he has some serious skills to back them up. Maybe it's a good thing he's not the one itching for a sparring match, because something tells me that he'd wipe Keihatsu were he so inclined.
He's so observant. I didn't even click on that the first time I heard. Okay, whatever.
How do you mean?
Just the fact that he's, I don't know, he's just very observant.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get more. Yeah, we're gonna get more on Motonari eventually.
No, that's why I say because I know his backstory now.
Okay.
But when I first was hearing it, that didn't even cross my mind.
So in the game, after you beat the main campaign, like all the warlords like kind of get their own like little mini adventure kind of thing. And Motonari, so most of them, like, you conquer a certain number of kingdoms or you recruit a certain number of warriors.
Yeah.
Motonari's goal is to have 100 Pokemon in his collection.
Nice.
And since each warrior has a different amount of Pokemon that they can recruit, he goes out of his way to try and recruit warriors who are able to bond with more Pokemon.
Got it.
So that's kind of what I based his so like his curiosity and fascination with Pokemon, like in general, outside of Greenleaf, that's what I drew that from.
Okay.
And I kind of built a personality going forward from that. I think I mentioned this before. Like, I kind of wanted to base his personality off of Julius from Black Clover.
Yes.
Like, he's a very curious fellow. He's very fascinated with the world around him. And he just wants to learn. Like, that's what, like, if it were up to him, he'd spend all of his days studying Pokemon.
Yeah.
But he knows that that Greenleaf needs his strength. He knows that he's the best man for the job right now. And until someone else comes along who can do better, he's content. He's more or less content with where he's at.
Yeah.
Let's see. Goes on to say, Motonari versus Hideyoshi, anyone? I can't be the only one wondering how that would go down. Ooh. If we're talking 1v1, Hideyoshi would win, but it would be more difficult than he would think it would. Yeah. Because, to put it in context, Hideyoshi is that powerful. Hideyoshi is one of the strong, something that I feel like gets lost not in translation, but in the narrative, since I'm using these warlords as like the main and secondary characters, is that people get used to their level of performance and the people around them being the norm, when in fact they're the top dogs. Like them tearing through like 20 Pokemon on their own, like that's not normal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think I've commented on this before, like in the Clone Wars, how we, like, people are like, why weren't the Jedi more successful? Like, why weren't, like, you know, because we see Anakin and Obi-Wan pulling off all these crazy stunts.
Yeah.
And then we see very little of the standard Jedi, who were certainly smart and educated, but they were not as powerful or as intuitive as Anakin or the council members, who we saw so much of. So by proxy, we don't really get a look at what the standard was, what the rank and file Jedi really looked like. Closest thing we get to that is when we see Attack of the Clones, where 200 Jedi went in and only like 20 of them got away.
Yeah.
So all that to say, Hideyoshi is one of, if not the most powerful fire-type warrior on the continent. Motonari is, I'm going to say, yeah, he's the most powerful grass-type warrior on the continent. But grass is a poor matchup for fire.
Yeah.
Like, if both of them were using this, like, both of them had the same affinity for the same type of Pokemon, like, let's say they were both doing fire-type or they were both doing grass-type, Motonari would stop.
Yes.
Motonari would stop Hideyoshi. But as things stand, Motonari would not be able to solo Hideyoshi unless he got very lucky or was able to take him completely by surprise.
No, that makes sense. Basic Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's like you can get clever with it. You can certainly strategize to your heart's content, but at the end of the day, there are certain type matchups that just don't go well for one or the other.
Yeah.
Let's see. Keihatsu gets a Vaporeon. Is this the beginning of an Eevee collection journey? Is he going to end up with every kind of evolution by the time this is over with? The guy's going to be able to body just about anyone in the kingdom with all the type advantages he'll accumulate if he does. I mean, if he's going to fight Nobunaga someday, he'll need all the help he can get, assuming that Nobunaga is as terrifying as this narrative is making him out to be. Yeah, Nobunaga's terrifying. So in the game, the main the player character he has enough slots to where he can bond with one of each kind of Eevee or evolution. So Keihatsu being able to link up with every Pokemon, with every Eevee type evolution, with every evolution is possible. But something you have to remember, and something that he is well aware of, is that the more Pokemon you take on, the greater risk to yourself when you're in a battle.
Yeah.
Because let's say, because you know, any physical attack, any damage done to his Pokemon is reflected onto him. So let's say that he ends up. Let's say that his Eevee ends up with like a leg that got snapped or something, right? And then that ended up causing like some blockage in his arteries and stuff in the leg, and that would already make things hard in his heart.
Yeah.
And then let's say his Vaporeon took a shot to the chest.
Yeah.
Like either one alone probably wouldn't kill him, at least not immediately. But you put those together, and he basically would have a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yes, his presence on the battlefield is far more powerful, and he can get a lot more done, but there's also a greater risk with it. So if he had 7 evolutions running around, yeah, he'd be a powerhouse. But the problem is that the amount of risk that involves is insane.
Yeah.
His father is a legend for having 5 partners that he knew, and his father was smart enough to almost never, if ever, deploy all 5 of his Pokemon at once. Usually he would send out 2 or 3, which again is pretty amazing in and of itself for the standard of this country or this continent. But he knew his limits, and he knew what risk was too much.
Yeah.
At least when it was on the battlefield. It's like a sense of he would only deploy all 5 if it was that or bust kind of thing.
Okay.
So hopefully that gives I'm not going to give you an answer outright, but it's something to keep in mind going forward as we watch what Keihatsu does, and should he encounter more Eevee, what is he going to do with that? Like, you have to think about it as like, does it seem like it's worth the risk to him? And that should answer your question. Let's see. Am I seeing an SAO reference with Zekin, or am I remembering that wrong? Good grief, how many stories, characters do you have under your belt? I'm losing track. Zekin is an SAO reference, but it's not mine. Zekin is the name that is the moniker that Yuki went by in the original canon. I believe it translates to something as like the undefeated blade or something like that. But yeah, it's an SAO reference. It's not from a Red Swordsman. It's not a Red Swordsmanism, if that's even the right word. The final scene was a strange blend of tense, funny, and heartwarming. We see people moving in to try and fill the power vacuum left by Tsunehisa already, and, well, Keihatsu is a 16-year-old king. I guess his patience for subtlety only goes so far, especially with people he knows aren't on his side, made worse by the fact that they're supposed to be. What made the scene more funny than heavy for me, however, was the fact that it was his other two advisors who found the whole thing so amusing. If they had disapproved of his actions, it probably would have ended on a much different note, at least for the readers, than it did in your writing. I do have to wonder why it is that he seeks Oichi's approval so readily, though. I know I've been saying that he's 16, and from your narrative, Oichi seems very pretty and kind, but there has to be more to it than him just being attracted to her, right? I know he's basically confirmed that she was born nobility, but it feels like there's something that I'm not seeing. Mind helping a reader out? Happy writing until the next chapter, good sir. First of all, thank you. Second of all, I don't know what to tell you other than Keihatsu operates a lot on his instincts.
So he's just kind of drawn to her.
He's a 16-year-old boy. She's a very pretty girl. So that's not enough to make him.
It's a contributing factor.
It's a contributing factor. It makes it easier for him to talk to her, and simultaneously more difficult to talk to her. Mm-hmm. But that's not the only reason that he would go and spill his guts to somebody. He's like he I believe he's talked about how like he's had to get very good at reading people. Yeah. So he, to really dumb it down, he likes what he sees, and he thinks that he thinks that she's gonna be a good partner to have. In the various arenas that come calling. Okay. Like, I don't know how to explain any better than that without giving out spoilers. Because like there are other reasons that he has for trusting her the way that he does, but I can't really reveal them right now without spoiling stuff. So
be that way.
Sorry. Yeah, I can't really help a reader out. Sorry.
I don't think he's even told me these things, so...
Haven't I?
Not that I'm aware.
Oh, okay. Alrighty.
I was genuinely curious, too.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, let's see. That's the last of the reviews, so... we've kept you guys waiting for a couple months. We'll go ahead and let the audio chapter play, and we'll be back with a little bit more on what happened while we were out for a month, and we'll be having Joe Clone along to discuss the following chapter, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
Alrighty. See you in a few.
Command. You do understand that this is an informal challenge, yes? Takanobu asked as he, Naoshige, and 3 other warriors stood slightly behind and to the sides of their master, who rolled his eyes at the question. Yeah, don't get your britches in a bunch, Motochika said as he cracked his neck in front of the 5 warriors that he had chosen to accompany him into combat. I'm not interested in taking over Aurora. It's big enough pain keeping one kingdom under control, forget 2 of them. I'm just interested to see what your master can do once his back is up against the wall. The intrigue is mutual. Keihatsu replied with an easy smile, hoping that his bluff wouldn't be too obvious. I eagerly anticipate the results of our sparring match. They were all in the hallowed battleground of Aurora, where the first duel to decide the ruler of the nation had been fought generations ago. It was a beautiful place, with veins of water flowing through grass and trees in the east and rolling hills in the west. Despite its use for conquest and other violent visitations, the area somehow never remained scarred from the battle damage it received. Within a week of any war being fought on the place, the grounds were always completely restored to their original pristine appearance, as if the beauty of the area were an immutable fact of creation. The legend said that the 2 contestants seeking to pioneer the fledgling-type the fledgling normal-type kingdom were cousins with different ideals that they each wanted to govern the newly formed dynasty with. One of them was a man whose name had been lost to time, though the name of his alleged partner, the colossal Pokemon Regigigas, endured to this day. The woman that had bested her cousin was known to be the warrior Aurora, making her kingdom the only in Ransei to be named after a ruler, though ironically enough, her Pokemon's identity had long been since forgotten. Some echoes of legend whispered that she must have tamed Arceus, creator of Ransei, in order to best her relative, but many, Keihatsu included, dismissed the idea as mere stories to tell children before bed. If no one objects, I would like to play the part of the referee. Motonori volunteered as he approached the two parties. When the men of Aurora received an affirmative from their master, the Greenleaf warlord smiled and said, "Delightful. I believe both parties have agreed to fight only to the point of unconsciousness or surrender." "My men don't know the meaning of the word surrender." Motochika grinned at Keihatsu, who returned the look. "Then let us see if they're willing to learn," the younger warlord retorted, causing the water-type master to laugh loudly. "Ah, yes," he said confidently. "I do like you, Keihatsu. My heart tells me this battle will be one that I look back on with much fondness." Keihatsu could tell that Takanobu wanted to reprimand the other warlord for his lack of proper address, but he also knew that it was not his place to do so, leaving him with no choice but to scowl in irritation. In an attempt to take his servant's mind off the subject, he said, "We will take up positions in the north part of the field. Your men may set up however you wish them in the south. Lord Motonori will strike the gong when he determines that we have had sufficient time to prepare ourselves, and then the battle will begin." Turning to his own people, he added, "I remind each of you that fleeing the battlefield except under my direct orders is punishable by court-martial and removal from my military service, with all the privileges and responsibilities that come with it. Even if this is a friendly mock battle, I expect you to act like warriors of Aurora." "Yes, Lord Keihatsu," they all replied with their right fists held up to their hearts. "Deo ecclesiae patriae." The motto of Aurora's elite armed forces was from an ancient language rarely spoken anymore, but the translation more or less went, "For God, for kingdom, for family." The simple way to look at it was a promise to hold close what really mattered, even in the face of death itself. Every noble-born child learned the phrase from the time they could form words, and every warrior that entered the service of the kingdom's warlord, nobility or not, had its meaning drilled thoroughly into their heads. "And you lot know what happens if you louts try to run," Motochika informed his men, all of whom returned a feral smile to him. "Good boys." "Both parties will be afforded 20 minutes to prepare themselves for the match, after which I will sound the gong barring any incidents," Motonori announced, with the other warlords nodding their agreement. Seeing this, the older man then said, "To your stations, warriors, and may the gods favor you." "It seems we have gathered a crowd, my lord," Nashige murmured as he patted his Braviary on the head, a powerful-looking Staraptor preening its feathers next to its peer. Both Pokemon were linked to the advisor, though he had been with Braviary the longest. "Have we now?" Keihatsu asked as he turned toward the massive gong in the west, near his castle where a small crowd of commoners and noble folk had all gathered to watch. "I imagine there will be some in that bunch eager to see me be humiliated for my address last night." "But a sight more will be proud when you claim victory, my lord," Takanobu said confidently. "We may face long odds, but I believe that just as we did at the border, we will emerge triumphant here." His Snorlax grunted as it rolled onto its side, deep in the clutches of a dream. However, this did not worry Keihatsu. Takanobu was quite adept at waking the lazy Pokemon whenever he was needed. "I share my comrade's enthusiasm, but I still do advise caution, my lord," Nashige said quietly. "As we have discussed before, Motochika and his Samurott are not to be taken lightly, and we have no real way of knowing in advance how well-trained his men are." "My money is on them being pretty well-trained," Keihatsu said dryly as he knelt down to pat Eevee on the head, along with his new Vaporeon. Both Pokemon made contented sounds as he did so, which brought a smile to his face while he added, "They are part of his elite guard, after all. I doubt he's the type to show off his novice warriors." "A fair assumption," Nashige agreed, "but we shall fight to the best of our abilities nonetheless." "Glad to hear it." Keihatsu laughed before he turned to the other three warriors on his team. Two were men, the third was a woman, and between them they had an Audino, a Bouffalon, a Castform, and two Herdiers. "Are you all ready?" "Yes, my lord," they answered together. Gazing upon the woman, next to whom floated the little Castform, he asked, "You know what to do, Kira?" "I am to provide support for his lordship and to weaken the enemy forces as much as possible," she answered sharply. "We only await your command, my lord." "Very good," he nodded before turning to Takanobu. Make sure that Snorlax protects her partner. It will not take long for Motochika to work out my initial strategy. We will see to her, his advisor assured him. Tenshin, Arun, your Pokemon will be with Sir Naoshige's and my own partners, Keihatsu ordered. Buffalon is set to take the brunt of the initial attack, so I want Audino to heal him as soon as the others come to reinforce him. It shall be done, my lord, Tenshin said dutifully. Naoshige, I want Eevee to ride on Staraptor so he can be deployed behind enemy lines and catch them unawares if at all possible, he ordered. Vaporeon will stay with the ground forces as our reserve fighter. If it seems as though it is going to be too much for our Pokemon, I will deploy him to act as a shield for any final blows from the enemy. May I ask what the point of that would be, my lord? Arun inquired. Let us say that my Vaporeon has an ability that I can turn to our advantage quite easily in a battle like this one, Keihatsu answered with a mischievous smile. As a soul-bound partner to the Pokemon, he did not need to be told what the creature's special ability was. He knew it like he knew his own hands. My lord, I predict that the enemy will send at least half of his forces to come at us from the east, as it is the only source of water on the battlefield. Naoshige said as he studied the landscape with a critical eye. I recommend that we counter with our own attack force in that direction, and leave Staraptor and Eevee to take care of any divergent forces, or at least slow them down from a distance. A good plan, Keihatsu nodded. Very well, we shall split our forces accordingly. Everyone be ready to move out as soon as the gong is struck. After the soldiers had confirmed that they understood their orders, Takanobu moved closer to his master and whispered, It seems that my lord has an admirer en route. The younger warrior turned around to see Oichi approaching with quick, graceful footsteps, though a small furrow marred her lovely features. Perhaps not so much an admirer as a concerned comrade, he murmured. Clapping his servant on the shoulder, he said, Keep a sharp eye out. If you spot any of Motochika's forces, let me know immediately. I'll see what our newest advisor has to say. My lord. Hello, Lady Oichi, Keihatsu said as he came to stand in front of the girl whose expression softened as she stopped walking. Come to wish us good luck? I came to say that I wish I could talk you out of senseless violence, but I know better than to interfere with the old ways, she said quietly. If you are to have allies in a war against Ignis, you must play by the rules, yes? Believe you me, I'm not exactly looking forward to seeing how powerful Motochika's Samurott really is, he admitted as he scratched at his neck nervously. But I have to do my best in order to assure those that are watching that I am a warlord they can depend on. If I can secure the good graces of the warlords of Greenleaf and Fontaine, it will go a long way toward restoring the spirits that have been lowered ever since the death of my father. Oichi hesitated a couple of times as if she were struggling with the words that did not wish to exit her mouth, so Keihatsu reached out to claim her hands in his own as he said, Please, speak your mind. I promise I will not take offense at whatever lies in your conscience. She reddened a little bit at the gesture, but she managed to hold his gaze as she said, I wish to stand by your side in this battle, my lord. Beg pardon? He asked, his eyes wide with surprise. I thought, I will go if you so command, but I wish to be here if you'll permit it, she replied with a trembling voice. Will you? I'm inclined to say yes, of course, only that I can't help but wonder why you have changed your mind, he asked of her. From what you've said and what I've seen, you detest Pokemon battles in their entirety. What has changed? My dislike for the concept has not been altered in the slightest, my lord, she replied firmly, but your other advisors stand with you now. If I am to have such a claim on such a lofty title, even temporarily, I must act in accordance with the responsibilities that it entails. I will stand beside you for this conflict and every conflict to come, despite the churning in my stomach and the sense of dread that sours my tongue as I watch these partners go to battle at the behest of their masters, without regard for their own well-being. He was amazed by the steel in her magenta eyes as she told him, I never thought that I would meet someone to whom my loyalty would be greater than my desire to abstain from the presence of a Pokemon battle. But you have done it, Lord Keihatsu. I stand with you because I believe that your heart truly beats not just for the people and Pokemon that are under your rule, but even those that are beyond your borders. Your expectations humble me, he said as he squeezed her hand slightly, and I would gladly permit you to stand by my side now but for the fact that you do not have a Pokemon. I cannot risk that you might be harmed without a partner to protect you, not to mention that it would be unfair to have a 7th member on our team as opposed to Motochika's 6. Can you not protect me if I remain close by? She asked quickly as she searched his gaze. Surely if I have no Pokemon partner, it does not upset the balance of the contest in either party's favor. He nodded his head once as he said, A fair point on both ends. He paused before he added, I will allow it, Only if Sirs Takanobu and Nashige do not protest it. Eevee, Vaporeon, and I will gladly keep you safe, but I cannot ask my warriors to do the same when they already have much to be concerned with. I understand, she replied somberly. Thank you, my lord. No, thank you, Oichi, he replied quickly. I can't imagine how difficult it must be for you to set aside that which you have abided by for so long. So, truly, thank you for standing beside me. It is less difficult than I had thought it would be, she replied as she gave his hand a light squeeze of her own, her face continuing to darken with embarrassment. But you speak with your actions, not just your words, and are thus quite persuasive. She then relaxed her grip and seemed surprised when Keihatsu did not release his. My lord, how long do you plan to keep a hold of me like this? She asked as she averted her eyes toward the ground. I imagine there are some of your subjects that would object to this display. To hell with all that. I'll keep hold until you tell me you wish otherwise, he said as his own face grew quite warm. Is it your preference that I should do so? It seemed like an eternity to the nervous young man before she raised her eyes to meet his once more in answer. No, my lord. No, Keihatsu. I don't wish that at all. Both of their faces lit up with new smiles as he said, Then let us remain like so to our collective content. Off to the side, Nashige and Takanobu watched the two young people, both of them wearing knowing smiles. You approve of her? The older of the two men asked. I do, Takanobu answered. I was doubtful at first, but I saw firsthand how much she cared for our troops at the border. She also makes our master smile like I have not seen since his mother disappeared. While I can attest to the second fact myself, I will reserve judgment until I see proof of the first, Nashige said almost to himself. Even so, I will keep an ear to the ground when it comes to her for now. I wish for Lord Keihatsu's happiness, but not at the expense of his safety. If she is hiding something, however unlikely that may be, I will bring it to light. Turning to his colleague, he asked, Do you object? Not at all, Takanobu answered. You must do your due diligence. All I ask is that you handle your suspicions with more delicacy than Tsunehisa did. It does none of us good to be fighting against each other, nor does it serve the people of Aurora. And before you ask, I shall not mention your investigations to his lordship unless I suspect they move against his interests. I appreciate the discretion, Sir Takanobu, Nashige said with a slight bow toward his colleague. Should my efforts prove futile, or risk the wrath of our lord, I alone will bear the blame. Then why inform me at all? His comrade inquired. Because I've seen men become obsessed with proving that they are correct to the point of madness, when it seems as though everyone else stands against them, the veteran warrior replied grimly. My instincts tell me that she is hiding something, and although I cannot simply let it go, I also cannot allow that to be my sole purpose for investigating her, at least not for very long. I confide in you because I need someone to know where I began, as to remind me of who I am now, should I begin to lose my way. Can you do that? Takanobu returned the bow with the words, You have long been a mentor to me, Sir Nashige. I am honored to have your trust placed in me, and I will see that it is a wise investment on your part, should the time come. The gong sounded across the field, and Motochika's Pokémon wasted no time in taking action. Many of them bolted for the river, where they would be the strongest, seeking to gain a swift advantage while the two of their number peeled away and took to the sky. One Pelipper and one Swanna of Keihatsu were seeing things correctly. Nashige, Keihatsu said quietly, and that was all his servant needed to hear. A mental command from the veteran warrior sent Staraptor skyward, with Eevee in the clutches of its talons, both Pokemon wearing fierce looks as they ascended. As they climbed up to meet their foes, the young lord added, Have Staraptor throw Eevee at the Swanna after he fires a Shadow Ball. Whether or not it hits the target is irrelevant. What if Eevee falls off and your gambit fails? Nashige asked, though he trusted his master's instincts. Keihatsu grinned at his subordinate relayed his commands before answering. He won't, and even if he did, you've had us practicing using Dig for these kinds of situations. Takanobu, how far away are the enemy Pokemon? They'll be on us in moments, my lord. Then discourage them from keeping their appointment with us. My lord. The younger advisor then turned toward his Snorlax and concentrated hard, a furrow appearing on his brow. The hefty Pokemon grunted a second later, and without opening its eyes or even setting up, opened his maw and fired a massive laser that blasted a bend in the river where 4 Pokemon had been swimming through just a moment ago. Engage your Pokemon save for cast form, Keihatsu quickly ordered, wanting to press the surprise advantage he had just obtained. Far as he could tell, all of Motochika's Pokemon had been hit by the laser, but one could never be too careful. I need him to make the sun shine. Sir! His soldiers replied sharply, even as a certain Samurott emerged from the steam cloud, looking none the worse for the attack it had just taken. "Stay behind me," the young man added in a lowered tone as he gripped Oichi's hand, which trembled slightly. "This is going to get close." The sky firelight felt as though it were blazing hotter than was normal for an Auroran spring morning. It had to be the work of the Four Faces white cloud that obeyed the commands of the plain blood friend Kira. It wouldn't hurt the water bloods directly, but it would certainly reduce the sharpness of their fangs and claws. Evie howled a challenge at the water wing's large mouth as he hurled a not dead, not alive ball at his quarry, feeling satisfied when the attack was successful, damaging the enemy and obscuring its vision. Right after that, he felt the claws of the star-brow sky friend unclench from around his stomach, sending him hurtling toward another water wings, this one much more graceful in its appearance than its companion. Not wasting any time, Evie gathered the rot stink death slime in his stomach before spitting it at his new target, though the other Pokemon managed to swerve out of the way of the attack just in time. That was okay, though, because Evie had practiced many times with his partner what to do in situations like this. Throwing all of his weight into his right shoulder, he corkscrewed through the air to smash into the enemy Swanna, sending them both crashing toward the ground. Before the white water wings could put any distance between them, Evie bared his little fangs and sank them into the neck of the enemy. It wasn't a real attack, it didn't even draw blood, but it was an effective way for Evie to keep a hold on his opponent, while at the same time keeping it on a collision course with the ground. Swanna flailed and honked and even tried to dislodge him by unleashing blasts of wind from her wings, all to no avail. The little Pokemon was just too strong and stubborn, and it wasn't 10 seconds before they slammed into the dirt together, with Evie using the Swanna as a cushion between him and the earth. The impact still hurt, though. As he forced himself to his paws, Evie found himself whimpering in pain from a broken shoulder and a sprained paw. He knew that he had achieved his goal with minimal damage done to himself, but he knew that the pain in his body would be reflected back onto his master's flesh, and he hated that. Swanna sounded like she was recovering, so Evie managed to force himself to hurl another Shadow Ball at the other Pokemon, landing a direct hit and knocking it out cold. Knowing that he wasn't far off from passing out himself, the little Pokemon limped over to a knot in the hills where he would be able to hide and strive to maintain consciousness. If he passed out, Keihatsu would too, and his men would be without their leader. Growling to himself, Evie forced himself to stay awake, despite his body's begging for the release of unconsciousness. "My lord, are you all right?" Oichi asked worriedly as Keihatsu groaned in pain and clutched at his right shoulder, where a dark bruise could be seen peeking out from under his shirt. "Evie broke something," he grunted, his eyes shut against the pain, even as a closer battle raged not 200 meters away. "That Swanna proved more resilient than I anticipated." Things had started off well for the Aurora side once Snorlax had broken up their formation, and the other Pokemon moved to engage at close quarters. Castform had even been able to cast the Sunny Day, increasing the temperature of the area and halving the amount of damage that any water-based techniques would do. Unfortunately, that had been the end of their good luck thus far. The sunny weather transformed Castform into a fire-type Pokemon, and it left him susceptible to a well-timed Aqua Jet from a Sharpedo, instantly knocking him and Kira out. Bufalon had been able to drive the shark Pokemon back, but he was immediately ganged up on by both his quarry and Motochika's prize Samurott. This left the current state of the conflict at a stalemate, but Keihatsu knew the Fontaine Pokemon had his forces outclassed. "So what?" he told himself as he bided his time, his eyes darting from skirmish to skirmish, looking for an opportunity that he so desperately needed. "We were outnumbered and outmatched to the border, and we still won. If I did it once, I can do it again." Even as he finished rallying himself, he saw what he wanted. Samurott opening his maw wide to unleash what was sure to be a powerful ranged attack up at Staraptor, who had just finished his own battle in the sky. "Go now!" he commanded silently, holding his breath to see if his gamble would pay off. Samurott bellowed forth a Hydro Cannon, a technique that would leave even the strongest of Pokemon as a waterlogged heap of bruises and broken bones, and Staraptor looked like he was in rough shape as it was. There was no way he and Naoshige would retain consciousness if it struck, and Keihatsu could see his servant mentally bracing himself for the coming impact. Thankfully, it didn't come to that. Vaporeon, at the behest of his new master, shot out of the river flanking the Fontaine warriors like an arrow from a longbow, placing himself between Motochika's partner and the bird Pokemon, taking the full brunt of the powerful water blast on his own body and sparing his new ally any further injury. Even more than that, it wasn't as though Vaporeon was harmed by the attack in any capacity, which was unusual. Even if he were naturally resistant to water techniques, an attack that powerful should have done something to hurt him. My lord, what did he... I don't know if Lord Motochika knew when he passed Vaporeon into my care, but he's a special Pokemon, gifted with a bodily ability rarely seen these days, Keihatsu explained through a pain chuckle. A few water types have the ability to absorb attacks of their own element and use it to heal their injuries. Even fewer have the power to completely negate the harmful effects of an attack and convert it into fresh stamina, boost their own attack power. That's what Vaporeon can do. And he just took the full force of one of Ransei's strongest water-type Pokemon, Oichi said, her eyes widening in awe. So, what happens now? Now? Keihatsu repeated with a laugh. Now, I turn this fight back around. Despite his outward appearance, Keihatsu knew that it was a long shot. Buffalon and Castform were already down. Audino was being protected by the two Herdiers, both of them looking more than a little roughed up, and Snorlax was still recharging from his powerful Hyper Beam attack. Even if Staraptor had come back to support them, he would not be able to withstand an attack from Motochika's partner. Only Vaporeon stood tall and strong as he faced off against Samurott, who regarded the smaller water type with something like a wary contempt. But he can't move for the moment, so I think I'll double down on our slim advantages, Keihatsu decided. As previously shown, Hydro Cannon was an incredibly powerful move, one that would temporarily leave the user too exhausted to act at any capacity. Focusing on his new link with Vaporeon, he commanded, Acid Armor. The blue Pokemon's body shuddered, his skin rippling like water in a pond before it settled back to normal, with one big difference, that being that his body was now much, much tougher. Acid Armor was a technique that temporarily altered a Pokemon's physical makeup so that whatever part of their body got hit would be like striking a wall of studded diamonds, all without compromising the creature's mobility. Not many Pokemon had the ability to use it, and fewer still could flawlessly combine it with a major attack boost like the one Vaporeon had just received. Samurott realized what was happening, and as soon as he had the strength to move, he unleashed razor shells from the blades on his forearms, moving in to cut at Vaporeon with shocking speed. Fortunately for Keihatsu, his own body had toughened up thanks to the defense boost, and it was now easier for him to set aside the pain of his partner's broken shoulder and think clearly. It wasn't a healing treatment, but he could certainly continue to lead the battle now. Aqua Tail, counter! He commanded, and Vaporeon spun fast, swinging his tail in a vicious slicing maneuver that halted the progress of Samurott's razor shell, much to the apparent surprise of the larger Pokemon. What followed after that was a battle unlike anything the warriors of Aurora had seen in years, not since the glory days of Keihatsu's father. Samurott and Vaporeon went at each other with a vicious frenzy, biting, slashing, body slamming, anything they could do to get the upper hand. Motochika had the ability to increase his Pokemon's attack power, but Keihatsu specialized in a speed enhancement that made it hard for Samurott to land a solid hit on Vaporeon. Samurott initially gained the upper hand when he used Dragon Tail, a knockback technique that sent Vaporeon flying over the heads of some of the other combatants, and into the river. Motochika's Pokemon gave chase, bulldozing one of the Herdiers as he chased after the winded Vaporeon. When he reached the mouth of the water, however, his opponent was nowhere to be seen. Before he could try to sniff out where the smaller Pokemon had got to, the water in front of him swirled violently before condensing itself into Vaporeon, which shot out of the river over the head of Samurott and gave it the momentum to land a powerful Aqua Tail that smacked his opponent in the head, hard enough to send him tumbling into the river, briefly stunned. This was when Keihatsu gave the order for Vaporeon to use his final move, Ice Beam. As powered up as a Vaporeon was, thanks to the Hydro Cannon he had been struck with, the wintry attack froze an entire section of the river, trapping Samurott in the ice. This apparently stunned the Fontaine Warriors a great deal, because all their Pokemon paused momentarily, surprised on their faces. Fortunately, Keihatsu's warriors were astute enough to realize the opportunity that they had been given, and they rallied their Pokemon to press the advantage while they had it. With Vaporeon freed from the task of taking down Samurott, he was able to join his new allies in routing his water-type cousins. The Pokemon of Fontaine put up a valiant struggle after that, but in the end, Aurora claimed victory. Congratulations are in order, Motochika said as he shook hands with Keihatsu, his hands still chilly to the touch. You did well defeating Samurott and I, especially given how recently you forged your pack. The leader of Fontaine had only recently awoken, having been treated for hypothermia and the concussion that his link to his Pokemon had given him. After the battle had been won, Oichi had begun to treat Keihatsu's injury with a tenderness that had not been evident when she worked on the soldiers of the border. She was kind to them, certainly, and her movements were well practiced, but now there was something more delicate about the way that she treated him. Before he could speak to her properly, he was called over by Motonari, who wanted to talk to him and Motochika both. After that, the other healers arrived, all of them beaming with pride at their fellow Aurorans and congratulating their warlord on his exceptional victory. Now, all the warriors and Pokemon were being taken to the palace, where they would be able to rest their weary bodies. A splendid showing by both sides, Motonari declared now, excitement and delight evident in his eyes as he stood with the two leaders. Fontaine's might is still a force to be reckoned with, and Aurora is clearly in capable hands of a man who still thinks fast on his feet. You flatter me, Keihatsu chuckled, his shoulder aching in protest. Eevee had already begun receiving treatment for his injuries, but his master still needed some more time and medical attention before his arm could properly mend. I'm grateful for the match, Lord Motochika. Thanks to it, I now have a better idea of what your warriors can do on the field of battle. Given some time, I'm certain that I can come up with a few maneuvers that will give Hideyoshi some nasty surprises. I look forward to it, Motochika laughed heartily. Tonight we dine as friends and discuss the way to deflate Hideyoshi's warlord-sized ego. You may include me in your machinations, Motonari added, pleasantly surprising Keihatsu. You are certain? He asked them both. We'd already discussed forming an alliance before this visit began. Motochika shrugged. Both of us had hoped to gain your support. We weren't about to throw in with a kid that's wet behind the ears. You've shown both strength and intellect enough that I can respect you as a fellow warlord, even if I only used half the forces at my disposal. Keihatsu's smile faltered in favor of a frown. Sorry, what? Don't get me wrong, defeating Samurai 9 was a real stroke of genius. Motochika grinned again. But warriors aren't allowed to enter my direct service unless they demonstrated a competent bond with two Pokemon. I only let them bring one partner into this sparring match of ours for the sake of a more or less fair battle. So, you gave my men and I a handicap? Keihatsu asked him slowly. Yes. My pride demands that I be insulted, but my head and body are grateful not to have received a worse beating. Keihatsu sighed, knowing that getting angry would solve nothing. I suppose this means that I can have even higher expectations of your soldiers when the time comes for battle. Damn right, Motochika laughed heartily. My warriors and I are going to make sure Hideyoshi regrets the day he ever took the throne of Ignis. Glad to hear, and you're the one that's going to lead the way, kid. I do apologize. That sounded like you wanted me to take control of our combined forces, Keihatsu said with another frown. I thought there would be more arguing about who gets control over what. Nah, not on my end, Motochika replied as they began to walk toward the palace, where a hearty lunch awaited them. I live for the thrill of battle, and I have a tendency to let out muscle my problems. It certainly seems to have worked for you thus far, Motonari said with a not-so-hidden smile. Why the sudden change of heart? Because as annoying as Monferno-brained idiot can be, his battle skills are no joke, and he's got a couple of advisors loyal to him that make up for his weaknesses. The leader of Fontaine answered. If we're going to successfully rout his army, we're going to need the brains to make proper use of my people's power. And I think that you'll agree with me that your specialty lies more in defensive battles, eh, Motonari? That I cannot deny, the other warlord admitted. I also cannot say that I am as fond of combat as you, Motochika. The only reason I commit myself and my nation to this alliance is because Hideyoshi will not cease visiting his senseless violence upon my country. So if we are to move forward in defending our people, we should discuss how we will divide responsibilities among our combined forces, Keihatsu declared. Apparently you both want me to act as the tactician and field commander, yes? Yep, correct. One of you two should manage finances, then, Keihatsu asserted, glancing between the two men. We will need to discuss how much gold we can each contribute to this campaign, as well as the number of troops and transports. Worry not about the money, Motonari said with a negative shake of his head. Greenleaf will be happy to provide all the gold needed to fund this war. You are in earnest? Keihatsu inquired, once again more than surprised. I have war funds for cases such as this. That may be, but not only does my kingdom boast a wealth of surprisingly potent mines, I feel that this would be the best use of my resources to contribute. The older warrior replied smoothly. Understand this, my friends. I will contribute warriors to our cause, but it will be a paltry number compared to your kingdoms. I may have the larger force between the three of our provinces, but I will not be throwing my men and women to their deaths simply to meet a certain quota of soldiers donated. Our Pokémon will not fare well against the forces of Ignis, and I will not allow a warrior to join unless I am confident they can hold their own against such harsh conditions. Keihatsu and Motochika exchanged a look before they nodded in acceptance. Your reasoning is sound, the younger man said. Very well. On behalf of Aurora, I thank you for the contribution of Greenleaf to the upcoming war effort. Yeah, thanks for all the coin, Motochika added. So while you two are doing all the brine work, what am I going to be doing with Samurott isn't snuffing out the Ignatians? Oh, you shall not be getting out of some of the paperwork, Motonari said with a devious smile that made his peer feel uncomfortable. Keihatsu, what think you? Quartermaster? I agree, the young warlord said with a matching smile. Quartermaster? Motochika repeated, looking offended. You mean arranging which battalion sets up where and organizing patrol rosters? More or less. I take it back. I want to be the battle master. There are no takebacks in my kingdom. The rest of the day was taken up by discussing the finer details of the alliance that would be born of the three kingdoms. While Motochika and Motonari conferred with their own advisors, Oichi went to tend to Eevee and Vaporeon's wounds. Meanwhile, Naoshige and Takanobu helped their master to catalog information that they possessed about their own forces, which were currently deployed throughout the kingdom. Extra forces were residing in the north, of course, but they had sought not to neglect the other villages' security as much as possible. Now that they were committing to an actual war, a draft would be needed to be implemented in order to provide numbers enough to constitute an army. This was a source of contention between Keihatsu and his two military advisors for over an hour, as he hated the thought of tearing families apart on account of him. It is different that I expect such things from our noble houses, he argued at one point. They enjoy certain privileges and therefore must be made to take up certain responsibilities, but I hardly find it palatable to take a hard-working farmer away from his livelihood simply because he has a babaro that helps him to water his garden. My lord, I understand your reluctance, truly I do, Takanobu said calmly. I myself have a childhood friend that will have to go to will have to go forth under your command, and I shudder to think what will become of him and his dearling when they face off against Ignis. To put it bluntly, my lord, we need at a minimum 500 conscripts in addition to our standing military if we are to put up a fight of any kind against our northern foes, Naoshige rumbled. Otherwise, we simply cannot pose a credible threat to them, even with the warriors of Fontaine and Greenleaf by our side. We need these supplementary fighters if we are to leave behind a policing force of any kind, so that anarchy does not take root in your absence. Keihatsu growled to himself as he sank back into the fact that they were right, more than anything. He knew that they needed some kind of a compromise, or else his contribution to the war would amount to little more than a gesture of support and well wishes, nothing substantial. Put the order out for a draft throughout the country, he finally sighed. Before Takanobu could rise to carry out the task, however, Keihatsu stopped him. There will be restrictions for those that are taken to fight. My lord, no mother or father is to be taken in unless at least one of their children is over the age of 10, and no house shall be deprived of both parents. He began, raising a finger for each condition that he added. No one is to be recruited under the age of 15 nor over the age of 60 unless said elderly volunteer. Retired warriors are not to be forced into the draft, but I will authorize an increase to their pension should they choose to fight for us once again. Lastly, no one with a partner weak to fire types will be forcibly drafted, though if their conscience commands them to take up arms alongside their peers, so be it. You limit our options, my lord, Naoshige murmured as he drummed his fingers on the table. Nevertheless, we shall accommodate to the best of our ability. Takanobu? Yes, sir. The younger advisor nodded. Standing up from the table, he bowed to their master and said, I shall have your instructions distributed throughout Aurora within the week, my lord. Thank you. As he departed, Naoshige then took the opportunity to ask, My lord, under whose authority will you leave the capital? I believe that my talents would be best used by your side on the battlefield, but I am also capable of managing the noble houses while you are away, should you be unable to think of another for the job. That happens to be my conundrum, Keihatsu admitted with a weak laugh. I do not regret my dismissal of Tsunehisa, but I recognize that it has cost me a gifted administrator. And while I am aware that there are other people among the nobility that could do a fine job of managing our country's affairs, I do not know of any that I could entrust the position to, other than you. Believe you me, I would love to have your expertise on my side in the coming battles. Then if I might offer a suggestion, my lord. Please do. You have a third cousin, once removed, who lives in one of our smaller towns that borders Greenleaf. Naoshige began. His name is Akurui. He served your father quite well in his younger years, back when I was merely a royal guard. He has retired some years back, but I am certain that he would agree to help, given the circumstances. Did he and my father part on good terms? Keihatsu asked cautiously, though the prospect sounded appealing to him. Yes, my lord, very good, Nashige affirmed. Your father actually gave him an estate as a gesture of thanks for his years of service, which is where he remains to this day. And you are certain that he is competent enough to manage your affairs in our absence? Without a doubt, my lord. If you deem that he is not up to the task, I shall remain behind in his stead. In light of that, you may send for him. Once the meeting was done, Keihatsu went to visit his Pokémon in his room, where Oichi and another healer were working on Eevee and Vaporeon. How are they? He asked as he entered the room, seeing both of his Pokémon on his bed, both of them in a deep sleep brought on by medicinal herbs in order to aid their recoveries. Both show signs of a speedy recovery, my lord, the other healer answered as she turned around in order to bow to him. Lady Oichi has done wonders for your partners. I'm afraid I may find myself relegated to the role of errand girl. Nonsense, Oichi murmured as she ran her slender fingers through Eevee's fur, making sure the little muscles and bones were all in place. I may know much of what lies in the medical texts, but my practical experience amounts to very little. You have been properly trained and practicing this craft since childhood. She is right. Your skills have served my family well for years, Mara, Keihatsu assured the healer. Do not sell yourself short. I will not hear of it. I appreciate your words, my lord, Mara replied. Are there any others that I might tend to at the moment? Yes, Naomi's Tedorisa was trying to get into the kitchen pastries again, Keihatsu said with a slight grin and roll of his eyes. The baking utensils were not properly cooled, and, well, I assume you get the idea. I do, my lord, Mara chuckled before she gave another bow and took her leave. As his servant exited the room, Keihatsu turned back toward his partners and the girl taking care of them. Thank you, he told her. What for? She asked as she stood up and turned to him. For standing by my side through that battle, and for taking such good care of Eevee and Vaporeon, he answered as he stroked his first partner's head softly. Eevee warbled happily at the touch of his master, deep though he was in his sleep. Have you been seen by a healer yet? She asked him, eyeing his bandaged shoulder. Not since you and I departed the battlefield, no. Oichi clicked her tongue softly in a sign of mild disapproval before she beckoned him to come closer. You need to take better care of yourself, she admonished him gently as she helped him to take off his body armor. Their wounds may have been treated, but they can still feel that you are in pain, and that does them no good. Nor does it aid your well-being to leave wounds like these without proper treatment as soon as possible. I needed to sort out some logistics with Nashige and Takanobu if I am to present my contributions to Motonari and Motochika by tonight, he replied. I can stand a bit of an ache while my warriors and guests take up time for my healers. A bit of an ache? Oichi repeated incredulously as she began to undo the bandages that she had put on over his shirt earlier. Keihatsu, if your wound matches Eevee's, your shoulder is fractured. If I don't get this set properly, you could end up with a crooked bone or a permanently brittle collar. My people come first, he insisted stubbornly as she helped him out of his shirt so that she could have a proper look at his injury. A leader is nothing without his people, and a people without their leader are lost. Oichi replied as she quickly turned away from him to get her medical equipment. This also allowed her to hide her flaming cheeks that had come about as a result from seeing Keihatsu's well-built torso that his half-armor did an excellent job of hiding. Even the hideous bruise on his shoulder and arm, in addition to other lighter wounds that covered his body, could not detract away from his good looks. When she felt that she would be able to face him without embarrassing herself too much, Oichi turned around and said, Sit down, please. He obeyed, trying to keep his body as relaxed as possible when she began to apply a healing ointment to his shoulder, though he really wanted to shy away from the contact, as even her gentle touch was proving quite painful at the moment. In order to keep himself distracted, he asked, Do you think me reckless, Oichi? In some regards, yes, she answered as she began to apply different paste to a cut that ran along his left rib cage. I admire your dedication to your people, I truly do. But I find myself worrying that you will be so caught up in your desire to take care of them that you will neglect to look after yourself. Well, that's why you're here now, Keihatsu grunted through a smile, causing her to pause in her work. You said that you would stand beside me in every conflict to come, yes? I did say that. Then as long as I have to worry about protecting everyone else in Aurora, I'd like to know that there's someone at my side that will keep me from pushing myself too hard, he told her. You make a good point. People without their leader would be lost, and I cannot allow that to occur on account of my own negligence. Sirs Nashige and Takanobu are too occupied with their own responsibilities to look after me like you seem inclined to do. So, will you look after me and keep me safe from myself for the sake of Aurora? Not for the sake of Aurora, no, she said with a negative shake of her head as she reached for the binding cloths. For the sake of a man that has given me much without cause, yes, I will gladly look after my dearest friend. Dearest friend, he repeated, his own face heating up just a little now. I like the sound of that, Oichi. As do I, Keihatsu, she replied as she moved closer and began to wrap the cloth around his wounded shoulder, her cheeks coloring again. Though, if I may be bold for once in my life, I hope that such a term of endearment does not mark the final steps of our growing proximity. The last words were delivered so softly that Keihatsu had to strain to hear her, but he was glad that he had. No, I shouldn't think that it would, he answered, and it was not lost on him that she had stopped moving the cloth in favor of keeping her arms encircled around his body. Ignis. My lord, I highly recommend that we consolidate our forces back in the homeland, Kanbei said as he stood before the throne of the Ignatian warlord. Aurora's leadership was provoked enough with our last attack that they saw fit to retaliate with forces from the capital. And they were confident enough in their ability to win that they allowed their own warlord to lead the charge. Coupled with the losses that my forces suffered, this does not bode well for... You mean the losses that you suffered at the hands of a kid? Hanbei scoffed. So much for your pragmatic approach to everything. He was a sleepy-looking young man, dressed in fine robes of white and yellow, and one of Ignis's warlords in training alongside Kanbei. He was a genius tactician, but he was too lazy to properly apply himself to anything. As much as Kanbei hated the fact, the only reason that the younger warrior might not be sitting on the throne of Ignis right now was more than likely because he just didn't possess the ambition to challenge Hideyoshi. It was this dislike of the other warrior that led him to say, "At least I held my own against the most powerful warrior in their country. You lost outright to his grunts." Shut up, the man on the throne grumbled, silencing them both. You're both just bringing me excuses and suggestions as to how to make things better when there's nothing wrong with my plans in the first place. You're all just too inept to do things right. Then why not do it yourself? Kanbei was tempted to say, but held his tongue. Whatever his opinions on his current master, there was no denying the man's raw power and talent in battle, a fact that he had seen many times whenever someone was foolish enough to challenge the man. So he swallowed his pride and asked, "What shall we do, my lord?" "Recruit from the locals and then get back out there?" Hideyoshi answered in a tone that suggested it was the most obvious choice to take. "And do it right this time, both of you. I want my banners flying over the capitals of Aurora and Greenleaf before the winter's end." "Yes, my lord," the two of them replied in unison before they left the man alone in his throne room, stroking his finely trimmed mustache and goatee. Once the heavy doors had been shut behind them, Hanbei turned to his rival and asked, "Did you hear the rumors about the 3 southern kingdoms forming an alliance?" "No," Kanbei replied, wondering why the other warrior was mentioning this now instead of during their lecture. "Is there any evidence to back this idea?" "Only that Motochika and Motonari both just paid the capital of Aurora a visit," Hanbei shrugged. "Nothing more than that for now, though. Didn't think that it was worth mentioning to our honorable master anyway." "And why is that?" "Well, he clearly doesn't want anything getting in his way while we're out burning Ransei to the ground," Hanbei chuckled. "So why should a rumor stop him? Right, Kanbei?" The pale man scowled, but he held his tongue for a moment. As much as he disliked Hideyoshi, his heart beat for Ignis as much as the blood in his body, and the thought of an invader setting foot in the volcanic land angered him. Yet he could not deny the talent or power of Aurora's new master Keihatsu, nor the kind justice that he had shown to the warriors of Ignis. Perhaps if it were him that could defeat Hideyoshi, he mused to himself. Out loud, Kanbei said, "Yes, we need not bother him with baseless rumors. Let us see to it that our master's plan continue without interruption." "Sounds like it's gonna be a lot of work," Hanbei said with a loud yawn. "I think I'll get to sleep before I get started on the paperwork." "It is 2 p.m, and you are a useless waste of resources." "Aw, thank you." Hello.
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 How you doing?
How's it going?
It's going. How about you?
Doing okay. I just finished the dishes. We just had dinner, so yeah.
Nice.
Nice. What was I gonna say? How's life?
Busy. Really busy.
You what was I gonna say? You've been you're not in school. You're not in university, are you?
No, I'm not. I have a full-time job now. So,
Good. That's the way to go.
yeah, this past week though, I've been getting up at like 4:15 every morning.
Ooh,
So,
Gross.
yeah.
that's gross. Like,
I
are
don't
you?
miss that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was for a good cause though, cuz getting up that early means I got ready so that I could be at work at 6 a.m. so that I
Mhm.
could I could run cameras on the on our live masses. So
Nice.
nice. Very
That's
nice.
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
This week
let's see.
over to
Uh,
CG. So yeah.
nice, dude. I had the worst flight experience.
Oh my gosh, I only
Like,
got snippets of it in your
you only
in
got steps. Okay.
here.
So let me break this down for you and for everybody else who's listening to this. Okay. So
Oh, you started recording already?
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought. Sorry. I thought you. Okay.
I
We're
it's
recording.
okay. Okay. Yes. Good.
Cool.
Yes. Good.
We're recording. All right. What was I gonna say? So here's what happens. This may have turned me off from ever doing a layover flight again. Like, just ever. I may never do it again. So the plan was I leave Albuquerque. And this was going to be on Thursday. So I was supposed to get there. I was supposed to leave Albuquerque Thursday afternoon, and I would get to Sarasota, Florida, late, like at like 10:30 local time. Which, that's all well and good. That's fine. I'm supposed to have a layover in Houston. I fly out on time from Albuquerque, and they say that there's going to be some inclement weather in Houston, but looks like we should be able to land just fine. All's well and good. All was not well and good. What ends up happening is we're like half an hour out from Houston, and our plane suddenly turns to the right. Like, not sharply, but like enough that like we all notice it. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're just coming in for a different angle of descent because, they said that there was going to be some weather problems. I'm like, it makes sense. And then we level out, we go straight for a while, and it's like, all right, cool. And then we turn the other way. And me and the passenger sitting next to me are like looking at each other like as the plane levels out again. We're like, did we just do a figure eight? And he's like, yeah, I think we did. And we're like, maybe. I'm like, okay, again, inclement weather. Like, maybe they just needed to stall for a little bit. That's fine. We loop around like that, like 3 or 4 times before we're like, okay, we need to ask somebody what's happening here. So we asked the flight attendant, we're like, hey, what's going on? Why are we like essentially flying in circles? And they're like, there's tornadoes in Houston right now. We can't land. It's like,
Oh
oh.
my gosh.
It's like, oh, okay, all right, cool. That makes sense. We have to fly around long enough that they're like, we have to go to Oklahoma City to refuel safely. Because we're just gonna, we're just gonna run out of gas is what's gonna happen. So we get there, we have to refuel, we have to change pilots because the poor pilot is now flying on overtime and they're really strict about not doing that anymore. And so they change pilots. We get the fuel. We fly back to Houston. The whole city is dark. The airport is one of the few places where you can tell that it's Houston. Like, I know we landed in a city, but there were like only a few blocks scattered around where you can see lights happening. Like, most of the city was without power when we landed.
My gosh.
Like, it was insane. And it's like in the middle of the night too. It's like 11 o'clock when we land in Houston. Mind you, I'm supposed to have been in Sarasota like 2 hours before that.
My gosh.
Oh yeah. Oh no. It gets better. So I go up to the clerk. I was like, hey, where do I get a flight to? When do I get a flight to Sarasota? They're like, well, the first flight that's gonna take you to Sarasota is at 8 in the morning, and you have to fly up to St. Louis, and then from St. Louis you'll get to Sarasota. Right? I'm like, okay, that's the earliest flight. They're like, well, the other option is you can fly directly to Sarasota, but you won't get to Sarasota till like 7 in the evening. I was like, how soon do I get to the St. Louis one? They're like, you get there like 4:30. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to take the flight to St. Louis because if Houston has another set of tornadoes, I do not want to be here for it. So I spent the night in the terminal. The only hotel that would take me was going to be like $200, and I would get to sleep for maybe 5 hours. And I was like, that is not worth $100 or $200, whatever it is. That is not worth it to me. So I spent the night in the terminal, did not sleep, got on the first flight out to St. Louis, flew up there. I think I had some breakfast I had some breakfast before I flew to St. Louis. I go from St. Louis to Sarasota finally. And here's something about me. I don't get airsick unless I'm unless I'm seated backwards, right? I have flown in cargo planes and not gotten motion sickness, right? And that's a rough ride. You're seated, for reference, you're seated sideways when you're in a cargo plane, right?
Okay.
But the only time that I've flown where I faced backwards, that's the only time I got airsick. This is the second time in my life where I've gotten airsick. And I think it was the fact that I did 4 flights, the ascent and descents. Like, technically 5 if you count the fact that we landed in OKC and then went back to Houston. So 5 ascents and descents in an airplane within the span of 24 hours. And I finally start feeling it. I'm like, oh god. Like, we're starting to descend toward Sarasota, and I'm like, oh god, I think I might be sick. And then it gets worse because my blood sugar decides to tank super hard.
Oh no.
Like, I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, if I don't drink something, I'm gonna pass out. And I'm like, so I'm like stuck between a rock and a hard place because I have to flag someone down for a soda. And I'm like, I have to drink it slowly enough that I'm not gonna throw up, but quickly enough that I'm gonna bring my blood sugars up from not, making me pass out.
Oh my god.
And then we start the official descent, and they're like, hey, we need you to put your drink away. And I look up at them, I'm like, I'm having a medical emergency. I need to finish drinking this, or I'm going to pass out on you guys, and then everybody's going to have a bad day. And to the attendant's credit, like, I've seen videos where these people can be, like, such jerks about it, or they're just like, too bad, put it away. The guy was super nice. He was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, I'm going to go tell the other flight attendants, like, this is what's happening. If you need anything, like, even while we're descending, he's like, I don't care if we're hitting the pavement. If you feel like you're about to pass out, please hit that light, let us know so we can come and help you. I was like, all right. I was like, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's good of him.
So I'm just like, trying not to throw up, trying to keep my blood sugars up, trying not to make the air crew mad at me. Finally land, and again, this is something that this rarely happens to me. I'm just so disoriented from my low blood sugar that I cannot stand. I'm like, if I stand up and try to leave this airplane, I'm gonna pass out. I'm going to fall over.
Oh no.
So they had to get the paramedics out. They had to wheel me out of the airplane, and they were it was a bunch of firefighter guys, and they were all asking me, and they were like, can you do this? Can you do this? And like, I'm starting to recover enough to where I can answer their questions clearly, and I'm starting to regain my motor functions. And one of the firefighters asked me, he's like, you're a lot better than most of the patients we get. I'm like, how's that? He's like, well, whenever we ask someone about the medical data that's relevant, they just go ahead and give us their whole life story, if not every single illness that they've ever had. He's like, you're literally just answering our questions like as we need them. He's like, have you done this a bunch of times before? I was like, no, this is actually the first time that I've had to be taken out of an airplane like this. And they're like, well, how do you know the procedure so well? I was like, well, both my brothers are firefighters, so they've kind of told me what they want and what they don't want from their patients. And the guy looks at me, he's like, huh. And he looks at his partner, and they kind of nod at each other, like, well, you know what? You seem like you're almost all right, but you know what? Just to be safe, we're gonna wheel you out to the curbside. Do you have somebody who's gonna be picking you up? I was like, yeah. They're like, all right, cool. What's the vehicle description? I'm like, it's a big van with Star Wars decals on it. They're like, cool. They radio the front. They radio the lane where like you're supposed to do like the quick pickup and drop offs, and they're like, you're gonna reserve this spot for this van that's coming in with Star Wars stickers on it. And like they wheel me out, and it's like right there, right in front of the curb. They got my luggage, like they helped me get my luggage from the baggage terminal. Like they gave me the whole 5-star treatment, made sure that I got in the van safely and everything. I'm like, that was really cool. The whole flight down was awful, but that part was really cool. And then amazing. I got there. I was supposed to get there Thursday evening. I didn't get there till Friday afternoon, and I was supposed to test Friday afternoon. I was in the St. Louis airport, and I call my supervisor. I'm like, hey man, I just need you to know there's no way I'm testing tonight. I'm like, there's just no way that's happening. He was like, I understand. We'll reschedule it for tomorrow. So I get there. I did have to present my thesis that evening, though.
Oh, no.
So I had to present my thesis. Apparently I killed it. So I'm like, okay, so sleep deprivation did something for me. By the way, I didn't sleep on any of those flights. And if I did, it was like for 15 minutes at a time. I suck at sleeping on planes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So I'm like running on like 30. At that point, I'm running on like 44 hours of uninterrupted consciousness.
Yikes.
Yeah. And that's when I present my thesis. And apparently I did great. So I'm like, all right, cool. Next time I have to do it.
The Leslie note.
Yeah, basically. That's exactly what happened. And oh my god. Like, and then it was one of those things where I went to sleep. I went to sleep at midnight. I had to be up at 7. I blinked and I had to get up. It felt it honest to goodness felt like I had blinked and it was morning and I had to get up and get ready for the convention that was happening.
Oh my gosh.
Oh god, yeah. So I have never before had the
right?
experience of
Sorry,
falling
I
asleep.
couldn't hear him. What?
Was that?
You actually slept for those hours, though, right?
I did sleep for those hours. I did. But it felt to me like I just blinked and woken up. I have never had the experience of falling asleep on my feet before. And I had been looking forward to this convention for months. But I'm standing there. I am trying to understand what these people are saying. And it is not clicking with me. I literally fell asleep on my feet several times.
Oh my gosh.
I got to a point where I just told Spencer, my supervising instructor, I was like, dude, I'm gonna fall. I'm like, either I gotta take a nap in the corner or you gotta take me back to the house because I just cannot take this anymore. He was like, all right. He was like, all right. You're gonna have. So he put me in the corner of the room, and I literally just put a bag under my head and went to sleep. I took a power nap for like 45 minutes. And after that, I was able to like regain some semblance of like, okay, I can retain information now. I can understand what's being said to me at the very least. So I managed to get through the rest of the convention. I did my physical portion of my test, and it's like 88 degrees out there, so it feels like it's 95 degrees with the humidity. I am in a black gi. It is hot as all heck out there. Yeah. I am doing all these. I am running. I am doing push-ups. I'm doing sit-ups. I'm doing whatever they had me doing in the hot sand. And this is not like nice sand. This is like mean. This is like mean sand with rocks and stuff in it. And so like it is all kinds of uncomfortable. I just straight up threw up in the sand a little bit.
Oh no!
At a certain point during the grading, I threw up. I threw up in the sand and then I kicked sand over it and I kept going. And there was this super pretentious nurse that came out, or she said she was a nurse. I don't know if I believe her because she was vaping as she's lecturing us. She's like, this guy is having heat problems. You need to stop this test and get into the hospital. And for the record, I've been drinking water. Like I've been drinking a water bottle like every hour, if not every half hour. I am making sure that I'm hydrated because I know what's coming. I'm like, I am fully hydrated. And I'm just like, the reason I don't think she was a nurse, or at least I think she might have been a nurse that got fired, is that the first question out of her mouth was not, is he okay, or what is his medical history? She just came over and assumed all these different things.
Man.
So at that point, I am just furious. And I went full red swordsman. I raged at that test. I threw every bit of fury I had into that test. I powered through it, and I aced it, and I am now a black belt.
That is amazing.
I was like, I was like, excuse. She was like trying to pull me off the test. I was like, excuse you.
I did not go through
I was like, I did not go through 2 days of flying through hell for this.
Yeah.
That was, oh man. So I passed the test. I was ordained shortly afterward, which I was very surprised that they passed me on that.
Yeah, you showed us that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I am now Sensei Reverend Joe.
Awesome.
And then I went to sleep at midnight that night, and I had to get up at 4 a.m. to catch my flight to get back to Albuquerque. And thank God that those flights had no issues whatsoever in me getting back. I think God knew that I was going to kill somebody if something went wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, nothing is allowed to go wrong anymore. Just no. No more wrong things this trip. Please, dear God, no.
Yeah.
And I think the Lord heard my prayers and was merciful enough to grant them.
Yeah. And my religion as well. Well, it's not that different though.
Yeah.
Catholicism versus, but we
Yeah,
also think that,
Protestants.
yeah, we also think that the devil can control nature, and so I feel like your story is kind of a testament to the fact that the devil was fighting
Dude, like,
your
something was...
progress.
Dude, I wasn't the only one who had a hard time getting there. There were other people who were attending where, like, their family had emergencies, or their tire blew out on the way, or someone got sick, like everybody was like being attacked on the way there.
I mean, and then meanwhile, he's dealing with all of this airplane stuff. I'm back home. Our car got broken into, windows smashed out, my phone breaks.
Oh yeah, her phone breaks like the minute after she sends me a message and is taking care of all the insurance stuff. Her phone just does a psst and dies.
Yeah. And so it was, it was the and I was like working on turning in my national boards, and it was the craziest.
Oh yeah, that was your deadline for the boards too.
It was the craziest 3 days, but it was funny though, because I'm gonna turn that off. Sorry, because God just had His hand on the whole thing, because like all this crappy stuff kept happening, but then He just kept providing for me and like just taking care of us, and I was like, you know what? It could be worse. It could be worse. This time they didn't rip my ignition out like they did last time.
It could have been way worse.
I was able to use my phone and file a police report before it broke. Like
my poor wife. Gosh. Like as soon as I get home, I'm like, I can't carry anything because my thumb got dislocated during the final part of my exam. No. The final part of my exam was I had to fight two dudes, not one after the other, simultaneously. Both of whom are like 10 years younger than me. And one of these guys is like 6 inches taller than me. I have never had to fight somebody that much taller than me before. So it was a really bad experience all around. And I think the worst part was I don't know when my thumb got dislocated. Because I didn't feel the pain. Right? And it wasn't until the ceremony was over and I was trying to take off my sparring equipment that I realized my hand was not grabbing stuff. So I looked down and like, oh, I don't think my thumb's supposed to be there.
Ugh.
So one of the senseis who was there is a general practitioner, so he was able to look at it. He was like, I can reset this. It's gonna suck, but I can do it. I was like, all right, just do it. So he pulled it out. So he had to pull it out and then put it back in right. And that was the worst part. That was the worst part of that whole thing. It was a rough trip, but it was like, you know what? No pain, no gain. There was a lot of pain, and so I got a lot of gain.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man! All right, now that I've gone on long enough about the trauma. So basically, like all of that to say, like that's why I didn't do this podcast last month, was because I was getting ready for all of this.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
It's been wild, you.
So
and we appreciate it because the creative process requires a lot.
The creative process requires insanity. Like I've been writing so good for the first time. I feel like I got like my second wind. Like I felt like I was hitting a dry spell there for a while because of all this pressure that I was feeling. And now that the pressure is gone and I can relax, like on both Pokemon Warpath and Your Hero Academia, I've just hit this new stride where I'm like, yes, I have all the power. I can do this. I can do all the things.
You can win. You can do
great.
it.
You can do this. I love that show. Alrighty. Yeah. So, all that to say, let's loop this back around into Pokemon Warpath. You've read Command. So you read the chapter Command, right?
I did read it. Yes.
Okay, like overarching thoughts, like what did you feel about this?
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, looking back over the I've got it pulled up here.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back over it, see if I missed anything. But no. The preliminary conversations of like the planning of how this sparring match was gonna go.
Yeah.
Is very, very smart.
Thank you.
I think. Yeah.
like I wanted to, like with this battle, I wanted there to be because like they had a really successful first battle, and like everything kind of more or less went according to how Keihatsu had planned it. This time I kind of wanted to go with the saying it's like battle plans don't survive first contact, because like you see throughout the course of the battle, like they have a plan and it starts out that way, but as soon as they actually start fighting each other, a few things go wrong, so the dynamic shifts, and the final part of the conflict, the dynamic has changed entirely.
Yeah, and I feel like that has been executed really well here.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
The way you wrote this.
Okay.
Because because as the fight was going on, I could feel the tension as the plan started to go awry.
Yeah.
So,
okay, good.
Yeah.
What did you what was that? Did you catch the SAO abridged reference that I threw in there?
Hold on.
It's on the first page.
On the first page.
I didn't catch
the intrigue is mutual. Was that it?
No. My men don't know the meaning of the word surrender.
Oh gosh.
Yes, I did catch that.
Okay, yeah. It's a little bit different because in here he says, "Let's see if they're willing to learn." The original quote's like, "My men do not know the meaning of the word surrender, but we're willing to learn."
Yep.
No, I was like, I had it wasn't. There's sometimes where I'll go out of my way to make a reference because I want it so badly, and I try not to do that too much because I know it's obnoxious. But this was one of those ones where I'm just like, this just works in here.
Yeah.
Because I think part of it is because I didn't keep the quote exactly the same, but the sentiment was there, and I just really had fun with it.
Yeah.
Well, even just watching the first 2 episodes back of My Hero, just all of the Star Wars references.
Oh my goodness.
Non-freaking
Admiral Ikbar, for crying out loud.
Like every 5 seconds there was a Star Wars reference.
Oh my god. Oh man, there's so many references in that show. I love it.
Just those 2 episodes though that just came out. Those are super reference heavy. Just so you guys know. It's amazing.
Without going into spoilers for that, yeah. What is it? So how do you feel about Oichi's involvement as things have gone on throughout this story so far? Do you feel like she's a nuisance? Do you feel like she's contributing in some way, or do you think she's just kind of there? What is I feel like she's been in long enough or introduced as to a point where she's not really a new element for these characters anymore. What do you feel like?
I kind of don't understand why she felt like she had to be with Keihatsu in the match.
Mm-hmm.
But the story reason was understandable. But her motivations are still quite a mystery to me. So,
okay.
But yeah, again, she's very closed off about her motivations, as was depicted by Naoshige.
Yeah.
Being kind of spying on her a little bit. So
okay. Oh yeah, that's right. What did you what did you think? What did you think of that? What did you think of the other 2 advisors, Naoshige and Takanobu?
That was really interesting.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of things that happened in the we both have not seen Game of Thrones, but I feel like that's the kind of thing that would have shown up in a show like that.
Fair. So. I've seen some clips of it because I am curious. There's a lot of bad stuff in that show, but it is I do know that it's well known for its political intrigue as well. So there are certain clips that I've seen where I'm like, okay, so I see how these political dynamics shift and change according to who does what. So I am admittedly curious about that. So I do look up those clips. So you might see some influence from not the storylines themselves, but in some of the ways that certain higher ups will interact with one another.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a little bit of that.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be really cool to see going forward.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited for that.
Yeah.
Also,
me too. But do you what impression do you think that they're looking out for Keihatsu for their own benefits? Or are they genuinely looking out for him? What's your impression of their workings?
Okay, so it was Naoshige and
Takanobu.
Takanobu, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
Takanobu was the guy that went with Keihatsu to the Ignis conflict.
That's right. That's right. Now Shige's the older one, right?
He's the most experienced war veteran that Keihatsu has, essentially.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like just from the impression I get, I feel like maybe Takanobu's like more on Keihatsu's side, while as now Shige is more on Aurora's side. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Kind of like
okay. Yeah.
I can see
like
that.
Yeah.
kind of like how Tsunehisa was.
Yeah. That's a pretty good way of putting it, actually. I like. Okay, so I'm glad that that's the impression you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Like
of course.
we'll learn more. Like we'll learn more about both now Shige and Takanobu as the story goes on. But you're pretty spot on, honestly.
That's good.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Like, what was there a scene in particular that stood out to you, like alone from the rest, or was there a conversation what jumped out at you?
I feel like the transition from the battle from Keihatsu's point of view to Eevee's point of view went a lot smoother this time.
Okay.
So
it was less jarring than when I did it with the Ignis conflict.
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit.
Interesting.
I could tell that it was Eevee talking at that point. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I honestly I don't feel like I did anything different in terms of my approach to that.
You probably
of the
didn't
writing.
do anything different. It just flowed a little bit better.
Okay, maybe it's. Do you think maybe it's because you already had the premise of when the narration changes to this style, that means it's a Pokemon talking?
Yeah, I feel that could be it. That could be it.
I think that's how it was for me too.
Okay.
And I think that often happens in this kind of storytelling model when you're almost shifting between dialects in a way. I think that happens usually the first time you encounter it.
Oh yeah, speaking of which, I did try to hear Motonari and Motochika in the accents that you provided in the last part.
Nice.
Nice.
Dude, it is so hard. It is so hard to keep the British differential from the Australian. It is way harder than I thought it was gonna be. I'm like, oh man, but I committed to it already. I can't back out of it. I have to keep going with the bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm mistakes were made, but maybe I'll grow from this.
Yeah. Question though.
Yeah.
We heard, at the end of the chapter, we heard Hideyoshi speak for the first time, right?
Yes.
What's their accent?
So their accent is, I think I might have covered this a little bit. I think it was on the third podcast, or the third chapter was the Ignatians have a very similar accent to Aurorans. So if we're speaking strictly, Aurorans are, we'll call that a New Mexico accent, I guess. Because that's what I typically speak with. Although I think it's my vernacular that's a little more altered. I think my accent is pretty much New Mexican at this point. Would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But for Ignis, what I'm doing is I am speaking how I remember people talking when I lived in Virginia. And one of the it sounds very similar, but one of the biggest differences that you can listen for is they are a lot firmer on the pronunciation of their T's and D's. Because with New Mexicans, we kind of make the same sound for T and D, but especially when we're using them in a word as opposed to saying it individually.
In the center of the words and at the end.
Yeah.
Even me saying at instead of at.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I think water instead of water.
Water, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll hear me enunciating the T's a lot more whenever it's an Ignatian speaking. That's going to be the major difference. There might also be some differences in the way that I inflect on certain words, but those are a little harder to catch, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder when you're going to try to do an Alabama accent.
Oh, no.
I think my wife would kill me. She gets so annoyed at me whenever I start talking like I'm from Missouri.
See,
Missouri.
Is that how they pronounce it there?
That's wild.
Missouri. I think I'm getting better. It's funny because you wouldn't think so, because New Mexico is often described as one of the most diverse states you can live in. But even though it is, there's a ton more racism here than there is actually in other places. And I was actually raised to be extremely prejudiced against Texas, Alabama, Georgia, basically anywhere in the South. And so it's actually taken me being with Joseph for the last, how many years?
14 and a half years.
Yeah. To really, and God just working on my heart, genuinely. And I didn't even recognize, it was like kind of one of those biases where it's like just kind of funny to poke fun at those states, but I didn't.
But then you realize it's actually rooted in
genuinely
maliciousness.
did not realize that I had this hatred in me, and until I traveled with him and had to learn to let go of it. And so it's just interesting, but I think there's just a piece of me that just in the past definitely got super irritated when I'd hear a Texas or just any kind of Southern accent. And I finally, like, the Missouri accent doesn't bother me as much as it used to. And I'm coming around. I'm getting better. I'm being intentional about, like, not
I'm considering
getting mad.
I'm considering making the fighting type nation. I'm either gonna make them Russian or I'm gonna make them Missouri.
At this point, it's so hard. I still cringe, but I'm working on it.
No, hold on. You should make the fighting type New York.
Oh my god.
Oh man, I don't know that. I don't know that I could do a convincing New York accent. Is the problem?
Yeah,
If you can't do New York, try Boston.
I was gonna say I might be able to do Boston. Boston's a possibility. I'd have to watch some videos on that, but I feel like I could do that one.
Yeah, I've been watching some accent difference videos myself recently too. So
nice.
Like especially around the U.S. Like there's a really good one by Ollie Richards, who's a fantastic language channel. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Okay, back to the story.
What did you think? So speaking of those guys, like, what did you think of the scene with Hideyoshi, Hanbei, and Kanbei?
Hideyoshi, yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah.
I really got the vibe that they're not very appreciative of Hideyoshi's methods. So.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, he's he's kind of a weird character in the game. Like, I could honestly take him or leave him.
Just from looking at his sprites, I can tell that.
Yeah, he's eccentric is a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, and you're using his
I'm using his
upgraded design, right? The one with the goatee and the mustache, right?
Yes, I'm using the upgraded design.
His first sprite, like as level 1, doesn't have that.
Yeah. So like, yeah, not every. So like, just because I'm using the physical description of one warlord, of a warlord, does not mean, like, if it's the stage 2 or whatever, that doesn't mean that they're that powerful, that they've gotten that point in their life. It just means that, like,
you're just using it for cosmetic
I feel like that aesthetic works for where they are at in the story now. Like, later on, maybe we'll see Keihatsu in a little bit more armor that'll look more like his stage 1 or stage 2 design.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But as far as their relationship, it's like more of a
I work for you because you kill me if I don't.
Exactly. It's more of a fear and convenience thing than actual devotion. So you can tell that relationship is pretty easily shifted in a different situation. Yeah.
It's like, so like how you described Naoshige is you could apply the same thought to Kanbei. In a way,
they're more ignorant.
He's just way more vicious about how he does stuff.
Yeah.
But like so like he is very much for his country. And
yes.
He's very much for his country. He obeys whoever sits on the throne. That's his thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a good.
So that'll make for that's gonna make for some interesting dynamics later on.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? What? So like,
Yeah, sorry for skipping to the end of the story there for a
no,
little bit.
it's fine. Like,
Oh,
was
I do
there?
that to him all the time.
What was I gonna say? Like, was there anything else that stood out to you like throughout the course of the chapter?
Okay, all right. Here's something. His utilization of Vaporeon was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I wanted him to like have like a really big opening battle.
Yeah.
Because like Vaporeon's one of my favorite. Vaporeon is ironically one of mine and my daughter's favorite Pokemon. So I'm like, all right, I gotta make this one good.
And it's funny because
Yeah.
you wrote this before she even had discovered Pokemon, and then separate from this, she just automatically started liking it.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. That's pretty good. What was I gonna say? Becca has to step out for a minute. But
Okay.
what was I gonna say? So you know how Oichi has a Pokemon in the game, right? Like, have you played the game or have you just looked stuff up about it?
No, I so far I haven't really seen much at all, really.
Oh, okay,
but
alright.
I know that, but I do know from the promotional art that I saw many years ago that she has a Jigglypuff, and and mentioned that she's gonna get it at some point.
Yeah,
Obviously
she is gonna get it at yeah. Okay, yeah. I didn't know if I told you about that or not, but yeah, she is gonna get it at some point. I'm curious. Like, when do you think she's gonna get one? Because like very clearly she's averse to battling.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, like and this being like her first experience in a battlefield, I suppose it makes it for a good case to study her her interactions with Keihatsu while he's focusing on the battle that's in front of both of them.
Yeah,
they're trying to keep each other safe. So
well,
that was really
it kind of goes into their conversation later on when he's like, I'm not. He admits he's like, I'm not very good at looking after myself. He's like, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I want you to help me. He's like, can you? Because like he like, so a good leader will recognize their own weaknesses and they will work to overcome them. But there's also I feel at least a measure of practicality and wisdom in having someone close to you who can help you, if not help you overcome that weakness, help you compensate for it or help to support you through it.
Yeah.
And Keihatsu understands that.
Yeah, I have a feeling at some point that conversation is going to come up during the marriage proposal.
During the marriage proposal. I mean, we'll see. When do you? Okay. When do you think that's gonna happen? If it does.
Oh, like somewhere before the end game, I'm guessing.
Somewhere before the end game. I mean,
game.
That's a pretty good. That's like 95% of this, like 95% of the story. So I mean,
yeah,
you're probably not wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know the story well enough to make a real prediction.
That's fair. Like, yeah, I've seen, like, I have a pretty good guess as to when most people are going to be expecting it to happen. And I'm like, I think I have something. I'm like, I think I have something better. But you know, the last time I said that, you know, I thought that bringing Kai back to life via future Aerie was a great idea, and everybody hated me for it. So, what do I know?
Well, that's just a mistake on your part, as Silver would say.
Yeah. No, it's a learning experience, and I still stand by it. I still think it was the right direction for the story to go in.
Well, to be fair, it was the right direction because I'm really enjoying how Hero Academia is going so far. So,
yay! Oh man! Oh man! Oh, I am. Oh, it's like in two chapters. I think it's in like 2 or 3 chapters. I am going to use probably my only ever uncensored F-bomb. And it ain't gonna be Bakugo who drops it.
It's probably gonna be Akurui, right? Isn't it?
I mean, maybe. Maybe it's a good guess. Like, oh, dude, the Paranormal Liberation War arc is like what I'm working on right now, and I'm so freaking excited. It's so good.
I know. I watched it. Oh gosh.
That arc was so good in the anime. I'm like, I have to walk into this with confidence because I have to believe that I can make something just as good, if not better.
Yeah.
I'm like, I try not to, I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm like, I try not to do a fan fiction unless I think I can do just as good, if not a better job of expressing the original, not expressing the original content, but of capturing the original spirit of the work.
Yeah.
My exception to this, sort of, is crossovers, because I'm just like, I'm kind of seeing like, let's introduce something new, and let's see how that goes. But I do still want to do a really good job with it. But like when it's more when it's more aligned with canon, that's what like and you could even say like even My Hero Academia is under a crossover, but I use that term kind of loosely because the Ruby characters are like
Very
in the
minimal.
story, but we're not like fighting Grimm and Salem and all that right now.
Yeah.
Like I think like I have plans for Salem eventually. But like the Grimm aren't a thing. So like that whole nexus of events, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's compliance with My Hero Academia canon. And I had the idea, hey, what if there was a Nomu who didn't want to be a Nomu? And then the whole thing went on from there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, and I have so many ideas for so many different stories. And I really have to discipline myself in the sense that I cannot start putting effort into a story unless I genuinely believe that I can do as good a job as the original. And looking back on some of my earlier works, I'm like, yeah, I did not do as good of a job as the original. I did not do as good of a job as I thought I did. But you know what? If nothing else, I can say that I gave it my best effort in doing so.
Yeah. That's all you can really do.
Yeah. One more quick thing on my end. You sent me a message. I believe it was a second Akururi. What?
Yeah, I got to that point where he mentioned Keihatsu having to leave Aurora behind. So it was suggested that his
third cousin once removed or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and its name is Akururi, and I'm like, oh my gosh, again.
I'm like, it's one of those
Okay.
Easter eggs where it's like you really do not need to know your Hero Academia. It's like if you don't know, then you don't know, and it doesn't affect your viewing of the story whatsoever. But if you know, and you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
which seems to be the case here. I was like. Like when I came to that, I was like, do I do this? Or do they just have some random throwaway character? And I'm just like, you know what? It's a pretty harmless Easter egg. Like, I'm not gonna like Kurdai and Mataris and all them. They're not gonna show up. I'm not gonna have any show stealers happening.
Yeah.
But
This is not
I'm like a little Easter egg. I feel like a little Easter egg like this is fun enough to just throw in, and it's harmless.
Yeah. It's fine. It's not like we're all going to be expecting you to write a whole character around him just because it's his name.
No, like he's more like to really dumb it down. He's more or less a plot device. They need someone to look after the kingdom, and this makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, he's probably not going to be involved in this story much at all.
No, he'll get name dropped a few more times, I think, and like they might bring him in to consult with something, but he's not going to be like a big player who really influences anything.
Mm-hmm.
He's like this version of Akururi. He's just a dude who did some work for the kingdom a while ago, and he did a really good job, and now he's just enjoying his retirement.
No. This isn't a version of Akururi. No, this is a completely different Akururi. It's not the same one.
Yes,
Yes,
basically.
it's just the name.
Yeah, it's just the name. The name's an Easter egg. It's fun. He's not like a super genius who. So like the closest thing to Akururi that we're gonna see in this story is Hanbei.
Okay.
Because like in the game, one of the things that is remarked upon several times, not just by him but by other people, even from other kingdoms, is that he is a born genius.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an arrogant little prick too. Like even in the game, with its very limited dialogue, I'm like, this guy's full of himself.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, the closest thing we're gonna get to an Akururi is Hanbei, but it'll still be pretty different.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that he'll probably join the party a little bit more once Ignis is defeated, right?
I mean,
And
it depends.
Keihatsu probably
He is
what?
very much
Is
one
it?
of those people who he'll go where the wind blows.
Aha.
Like it depends. Like, okay, do you remember that scene in? Have you seen the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie?
No, not yet. But I
Oh,
did
okay.
buy
Well,
for my brother.
there's a scene where Jack Sparrow is talking to this group of people, and he's like, "So where do your loyalties lie? With the highest bidder. I have a ship that makes you the highest bidder." That's Hanbei. It's like, who has his loyalty? Whoever gives him what he wants, essentially.
Yep.
So
That makes more sense now. I didn't watch the movie yet. I bought the DVD for my
Nice.
brothers for very cheap.
nice.
Honestly,
Yeah.
those movies just kind of blend together for me at this point. It's been so long since I've seen them all.
First one good. Second and third one honestly kind of mediocre. Fourth one great. Haven't seen the fifth one.
Yeah, I remember liking the fourth one.
First one I've seen was the sixth one. and then I saw
There's
the
only
first
five.
one.
There's only 5 of them.
Oh, only 5? Wait.
Yeah. Dead Men Tell No Tales. That's the fifth one.
I thought
Then that's the one I saw first.
They say they're gonna make one without Johnny Depp, and I'm just like, no, you're
Let's all
not.
laugh together.
I'm like, no,
Well,
you're
you're
not. I'm
gonna-
like, Johnny Depp made that series.
Oh yeah.
He
There
did.
is no Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp. Love him or hate him,
Yep.
the man made Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like, they can try, but they're going to fail.
Oh, horrendously. Like, they're
Yes.
gonna fail harder than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which,
Oh, God.
how did you fail? I'm like, how did you fail that? How? And it's Disney with Lucasfilm. What do you expect?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, wait, that's not entirely true, because Disney made Rogue One, and Rogue One is unironically one of my favorite Star Wars films of all time.
See, they just got lucky with Rogue One, though. So
I don't think they did. I think it was very well executed.
it was, yes. I love it too. I'm just saying that's still that's still the diamond in the rough.
Yeah. It's the diamond in the coal mine. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, got any other like suppositions or questions to get to for the story going forward, or about this chapter?
I think that I'm trying to think of like something more to say about Oichi. Trying to think, because I feel like we didn't talk much about her.
About
As
her?
much about her as she deserves, because man.
Like, yeah. I was reading their interactions to Becca, and she's just laughing. I'm like, I know they're really bad at flirting.
Yes. Yes, they're really bad at
I'm like,
flirting.
so here's Oichi's character to me, at least. She knows how to present herself in front of people, but she doesn't know how to be with other people, if that makes a kind of sense.
All right.
Like,
that kind of explains a little bit then.
Yeah, it's like she knows how to. I don't know how. Like, it's a really difficult word to encompass like her
She's
interactions.
good at
with people.
masking, but when it comes to actually being genuine and heartfelt, she struggles.
And it's not even. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But it's like, it's not even a lack of her like. It's not even wanting to be dishonest. She just doesn't know how to. She just doesn't know how to be around other people.
That makes so much more sense now, because she's like presenting herself to Keihatsu, presenting herself to Keihatsu, but not.
But she has been. But you can see that she's softening up. Like,
yeah, it's a slow process, but she's still like not very sure of herself.
she's not comfortable in her own skin, is what it is.
Yeah, I can tell that.
Yeah. It's she's like she doesn't know how to be comfortable with herself, so clearly she wouldn't know how to be comfortable with other people.
Yeah.
And then here's Keihatsu, who's like he's so desperate to have someone he can trust without reservation that he just more or less seizes on the first person who he thinks might be able to fill that role.
Yeah, he just got lucky here.
Essentially, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it's good. Like it's lucky that it's working out very well for both of them. But I'm like, in general, don't do this, people. This is not a safe way to live your life.
Nope.
It's like that's not gonna end well. It's like this is a story. This is more or less a fairy tale. That's why things are working out okay.
Speaking of fairy
But
tale.
don't do that. Yeah. There's no such thing as fairy godmothers.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh, I read this article, and I didn't even know about this, where it talks about how, like, even the original Cinderella really stripped down her character. Because what happened was in the original
the Disney Cinderella?
Yeah, like the cartoon one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one apparently stripped down Cinderella's character in a very important way, in that her fairy godmother was watching her. And she saw, and she helped her out, and she states explicitly that she helped her out because she saw that Cinderella was such a hard worker. Because of her work ethic, and because she never complained, despite her mistreatment. You know, she never raised a hand or a voice to the people who were oppressing her. It was because of her character and because of her work ethic that her fairy godmother helped her. It wasn't just like, oh, now it's convenient for me to help you.
That's interesting.
So I'm like,
and
wow,
granted,
that's...
in the movie, like...
They show that she works hard.
Yeah, and they show that she doesn't complain. But there's a couple moments where she's you could just see a tiny...
Well, there's another part of it is where they also cut down on the prince too, because the reason he's attracted to her is not because he sees her from across the room. What ends up happening is she ends up being one of the girls who presents herself to him. And just from the way that she speaks to him, he's immediately taken with her because of the way she talks to him. He can tell that she's not presenting herself. She's just talking to him.
Just treating him like a human being.
Like a human, yeah. She's talking to him like he's a person instead of a crown. And that's what draws her to him. Or that's what draws him to her.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So they really, really stripped that down in the movie.
Interesting.
Which, I get it. It's like it's meant to be a children's story. I am glad that they showed that what made Cinderella who she was. Like, she has a very strong work ethic. She's very kind to the people she can be kind to.
I wonder if that's the reason that Tolkien hated Disney.
Might be. I didn't know Tolkien hated Disney.
Yeah.
I know he hated a lot of cinematography that was happening.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't like cinematography in general.
Yeah. Well, I guess he just had a particular hatred for Disney for dumbing down stories like that, probably.
Interesting. Well,
I'll have to look more into that.
I kind of love that, honestly.
That's funny. Nobody trash talked like Tolkien.
Oh, he was amazing.
That was have you read that? Have you read that article about what happened when the Nazis wrote him asking if he was Jewish?
Oh my gosh! Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So the Nazis were inquiring as to whether or not he was Jewish because they can't have Jewish. The Third Reich can't have Jewish literature in their regime.
They're like, you're a really smart guy, and we want to have your books, but we need to know if you're Jewish or not.
And I'll dumb down I'll really abridge his response, but he was you got to look it up. It's amazing. Like, to anybody who's listening to this, you have got to look this up because it is the most savage gentleman. Like, Winston Churchill would applaud this man.
Oh my
for the utter gentlemanly savagery that he employs. Basically, what he responds to is he's like, I regret to inform you that I am not of Jewish descent. I wish I could be of Jewish descent because they are an amazing bunch of people. Y'all can go. He's like, you all can go suck an egg.
No, he basically says, and I would rather you not.
Oh, that was right. He was like, I would rather you not publish my works.
I don't want to be associated with you.
Yeah. I was, and again, we are not doing it justice. Like, you got to read the whole thing.
The letter is so concise and eloquent.
It is written in a way that you cannot accuse him of insulting anybody.
But it's so.
But it's so insulting. It is the peak of British passive aggressiveness.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I got it. Yeah. All right, you've convinced me. I've got to look
You
this up.
you gotta go look this up. But all right, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to go. I missed this podcast.
Hey,
Man. I'm like, I think
We're
one of the
back.
reasons I'm derailing so badly is because I'm like, I missed having my bi-weekly podcast for a month. Like, it was good. I needed the break. I needed to focus on the other stuff. But I'm just so excited to be back.
Yes, we're back with
Yes,
people, and
you are.
hopefully I'll have a phone again so I can be back on this Discord because I miss it.
Yeah. Oh, Becca, by the way, Mataris left my server, by the way.
What?
He was putting bots in the server, and I don't like bots.
Oh.
Well, it's nothing too bad. It's just a color changing bot, and that's it.
I don't trust bots at all.
Honey, they're
That's
running
fair, though.
everything at this point.
Like,
Yeah, but with what little control I have, I'm gonna maintain it.
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Maintain your control. I don't mind it.
Oh man, but all that being said, I think that's about everything that I did.
Yeah,
You have
that's
anything
about
that you
it.
want to talk
No,
about in the story?
I
honey?
don't think so. I mean, I feel like it was pretty straightforward.
Just kind of the warlords measuring each other up.
Yeah, it's you know, you had that moment of, oh my gosh, like, are they gonna get support? Is this just gonna make it more interesting because we don't get support? But I was surprised. But at the same time, and then I think it was interesting. I don't know what you guys covered while I was out of the room. But it's like the one
We
warlord's
actually did not cover the like the consolidation of their
Their forces.
Oh, okay.
everything.
Yeah, because I thought it was like, you know, because I think it was reasonable that the one warlord's like, look, I'm not going to pour my people into this, but we will provide resources.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I thought that was actually like pretty realistic leadership move. And I don't know. I liked it.
No, like it. Yeah, I honestly, like, I have been pushing my brain cells on this. I'm like I have to think really carefully about it. It's like, okay, I can't just throw an equal amount of troops from each nation at this. I have to think about, like, okay, what can each country contribute to this? Because it's not just all about the people when you're looking at warfare.
Yeah.
You have to look, it's like, okay, who can supply what weapons? Who can supply the money for this? Who can supply the people? Like, all of these things have to be taken into account. It's not just a matter of like, well, water types are the best, so we're just going to send all of them out.
Yeah.
It's like, the water type nation has the fewest population, so while they can contribute and they will no doubt be effective in their coming conflict with the fire nation, that
Fire
can't.
Fire
Yeah,
nation.
I said what I said. Like, you can't
fire
rely
nation.
entirely on them. Like, everybody else has to pick up the slack in some way.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was really smartly done. So you props to you for organizing everything.
Thank
as
you.
they
Yeah,
figured it out.
I've been watching a few shows, and like I said, I looked up some Game of Thrones clips. Like, there's one family, I think they're called the Lannisters. Like, they're not actually like the rulers, but they have like all
Lannisters
the
or Lancasters? I can't remember.
I think I've heard Lancaster.
Lancaster. Okay, whichever it is, they are not
shows
rulers
them.
themselves, but they have like all the money. So you can see the way that they basically manipulate the crown from the advisors table, essentially.
Oh gosh. Yep.
Yeah. And then there's also the people who are like out on the fringes of the empire who are keeping the place safe, and they're kind of getting tired of the way that things are getting run from in the center because they're all safe and fat and happy.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that resentment. So it's like there's so many different roles that go into politics that I now have to force myself to think about. Because it's not like, and another good show for understanding this is Downton Abbey, because what happens to the servants reflects up all the way to the masters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it affects their interactions not just with each other, but even outside of Downton Abbey.
That's why, like, when you're talking about the two advisors, it's almost like Carson and the head maid. Like, Carson, he is 100% like, it is about the integrity of the family. Like, it is the integrity of the integrity of the abbey that we must maintain.
And she's
the
about
maid
the
is
people.
more about the people. She's like, I gotta take care of my girls. I gotta take care of the girls that I serve. I gotta take care of the girls that I am in charge of. And she's about people.
Yeah.
And so, and at the end of the day, you get to know them and you realize, oh, Carson has his own little biases when it comes to people too. But I just like you.
Like, he's
you
a sucker
definitely
for Lady
see-
Mary,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Even though she's like the
But he
worst
was like
one of them.
he was like her he was like
Yeah,
her
I
dad.
know.
Because they as children they were not really raised by their parents until they were trained
Until they were ready to come into high society.
So I mean, while they were children, they were basically raised by the staff. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Uh-oh. I think we lost him. That's it.
oh,
I think we lost you for a second there.
Sorry about that. I think my phone froze.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
you're good. You're good.
What was I gonna-
Anyway, just like you
There's,
know, you just got that balance.
And then so there's
The
another
trickle
like
down of effects.
this will play into effect later on in the story, but this is something that I'm kind of like it's been touched on a little bit, but like polygamy being a thing. Like obviously I'm against it. I think that's horrendous. I think that every instance of polygamy that has ever occurred has been nothing but misery.
Yeah.
That being said, everyone doesn't abide by my way of living. And in the past, specifically when it comes to politics, polygamy had a huge role to play in politics. There's this anime that I watched. It's called How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. It is a harem anime. But the reason that the guy ends up getting engaged to multiple women is not necessarily because he is attracted to each of them. By and by, it's because of the politics that are involved. And he's in a situation where the kingdom that he's now in charge of ruling could come under fire from pretty much anywhere. So he has to arrange marriages to basically ensure that Kingdom X, Y, or Z won't attack and kill him. Which
It's gross,
again, I'm like, okay, fan service is fan service, whatever. But I'm like, I'm also trying to understand it from the other side of things, because as the writer, I have to at least be able to empathize with these characters. Like, if I'm going to write them convincingly, if I'm going to write these dynamics convincingly, I'm like, I need to understand why. Why does this person think it's okay? I know this is okay, but what led them to this conclusion? So and that's a really hard thing to do as a writer, especially as someone who is very set in my ways, very set in my moral principles and ethics.
Yeah.
It is very difficult for me to unbend my understanding of the world to be able to accommodate those understandings. And that's not to say that they're changing my mind on how anything works, but even to be able to empathize with these characters who are so different from me and whose goals are so different from what I would ever want to achieve, I have to be able to make myself do it, essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so based on this understanding, this kind of character would do this because X, Y, or Z, because they want this outcome, and this is how they would handle it. Obviously, I see something very different happening because I'm like, well, you could do this instead, but they weren't raised to think this way, so it's a very strange course of interactions that I have to have with these characters.
Oh, yeah. I would not be able to write that.
So like political marriages are definitely going to be a thing in this story.
But not among the main cast, though.
Polygamy will definitely not be a thing among the main cast. There may end up being some political marriages among some of, like, not the main cast, but some of the secondary characters, perhaps. There's some stuff that I'm still working out.
Okay.
But I think I've got some. Yeah, I think I've got some stuff set up for that. But yeah, by no means am I going to be like, oh, the good guys are going to be doing polygamy. Haha, no. I mean, look at Keihatsu. Keihatsu looks upon it with disgust because he saw what it did to his family life. Yeah. His dad probably picked up an STD and died from it.
Yeah.
His mom got banished. Mm-hmm. Because the queen was rightfully peeved, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh yeah, she had every right to dislike. Okay, she didn't have every right to go and want to kill a kid, but she had every right to want to dislike the Keihatsu's mom, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But again,
I mean, it just think back to all the biblical stories.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
At the same time, like
just Abraham, Jacob, Solomon, for crying out loud.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the most depressing lines in the Bible is where Solomon recounts the fact that he cannot even remember all of his wives' names.
Yeah. That's so.
Like he does. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he alludes to that he doesn't even recognize all of them by face.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I'm just like,
It's pretty bad.
I'm like, that is a horrendous way to live.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do that to all those people?
Well, he definitely was granted with a worldly wisdom.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not necessarily. I mean, eventually, a little bit of that spiritual wisdom did come through, but not necessarily that in a way that he applied it.
Gentlemen, find yourselves a lady who will stick with you, and ladies, find a.
They exist.
They do exist. Gentlemen, hold the door open for the lady. Lady, be a woman worth opening the door for.
Yes. It's
I already do that.
Find yourself one of those, and you're gonna have yourself a great life. Like you can be digging in the couch for loose change to make sure you can afford rent,
Oh yeah.
and you're still gonna have a much better life with that person than you will with a gold digger.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think.
So if there's anything not to learn from this story, don't do what a lot of the politicians in this story do.
I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna think to do them anyway, because
You would think, but you see some of the comments from people on internet these days, and I'm like, were you just never held as a child, or did they never hold you again after they dropped you? What happened? Did they just drop you and leave you there, and nobody ever picked you up again, and that's why you want anybody to love you?
Oh, you poor thing.
I'm like, going on the internet sometimes, I'm just like, this is depressing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't even be angry at some of this. It's just sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
It's just a sign of the times.
Ugh.
Sad.
Sad.
Alrighty. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover.
I think so.
You got any closing comments, Joe?
I had one, but I think it's a little bit inappropriate. So no, thank you. I'm not gonna do
Okay. Tell me later on the Discord, because now I'm curious.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you there.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this. We do appreciate it when you guys take the time to join us for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Happy Memorial Day, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope you had a good Memorial Day as well. For real quick, my family did lose a member to World War I. My great-great-grandfather, Charles, he was a victim of mustard gas poisoning. He did make it home, but he didn't last very long. He was sick by the time he got home, and I don't think he lasted it even a few months. So he was considered a casualty of World War I. The next 3 generations of my family have all served in the military. I'm happy to say that all of them made it home and have lived pretty well.
Awesome.
So.
And both of my grandfathers were both in World War II, and both of them luckily survived long enough to have my parents. So
that's awesome.
My my great grandfather was in Battle of the Bulge, but he was blessed to make it home as well. So that's.
But yeah, I do hope.
Thank you to the service members for sure.
Yeah. So this episode will be airing after Memorial Day, but I do hope that Memorial Day is not the only day that we remember our fallen.
I mean, we also got Veterans Day.
Yeah.
But, alrighty, guys. We will catch you on the next one. Thank you so much, Joe Clone, for joining us.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Sorry, say again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always. You have yourself a good night, my friend.
You guys too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.